watching the Letterman podcast with Mike Chisholm, endorsed by the Hello Deli.
Yeah. Welcome once again to the Letterman podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. All right, today we got comedian Chad Riden. Chad has been a stand-up. He's so much more than a stand-up. Again, we go into this near the end of the episode. He's like a performance artist in many regards. He is a stand-up, but he is so much more and very much cut from the cloth of the audience, the people who felt like we were in the clubhouse of David Letterman and company and the productions that they would put out there. We in the audience who just were inspired. This guy has mischief hardwired into him. And at the beginning of the show, like, we talk a lot of Letterman in this show, but it's a long episode, and the beginning is just me shooting the bull with a stand-up comic, and I love stand-up comics. I'm involved in the scene locally where I live. I really, really have always appreciated the art of stand-up, but people who do it and the eclectic nature of them. I compare them all to Fabergé eggs near the end. It's true. They are. He's got a lot of great stories of things that he has done in his career, including his the way that his very first encounter with David Letterman happened. It's nothing short of astounding. And it's one of those things where there's whimsy involved with it, but also a lot of hard work, a lot of effort on his part to make things happen in his life. He's talked about his career in stand-up, both putting on shows, but also being, how he got into it and what he did. He's had many connections with stand-ups through the years, including guys like Ralphie May and Nate Bargatze, and many other. I'm not even doing justice to the adventures that Chad Riden has been on. If you want to see what Chad is doing, go to chadriden.com, and that'll be a gateway to everything else that he is doing. He lives off the grid, very, very I would almost say eccentric. He's an eccentric adventurer. He really is. I just appreciate Chad so much. And he was a member of AFL, the early AFL, alt.fan.letterman. This was the group that I didn't know existed, that I wish I knew existed, if I was not so technologically challenged growing up. And these people who had this very special connection to the show, they would go once a year or once every couple of years to the show. Tony Mendez would welcome them in, and they would many times be part of the show, be part of the Tony Mendez show. And I've said this, I've been privileged to be part of some of the reunions that some of the AFLers have. And open invitation, anybody who is a part of the early AFL has an open invitation to be on the show here. Chad is just a guy that I've connected with immediately. As soon as I met him, I enjoy every encounter that we've had. You know what? The Letterman podcast has one sponsor only. That is Rupert G's hello-deli.com. Go to hello-deli.com for one of your only official places to buy Late Show with David Letterman merchandise, hats and mugs and shirts and all that sort of stuff. You can also go to the official Letterman store as well. They have different stuff at each store, so I highly recommend going to hello-deli.com. Also go to the official Letterman store. This baby here arrived last week. I've got a Barbara Gaines baseball tee. I love baseball tees. I'm a child of the 80s, coming as well. But anyway, without further ado, please enjoy this very expansive, fun conversation that I had with comedian Chad Riden. All right, Chad, right off the bat, I got to tell you, dogs trend well on the show. We got who do we got with us, that's joining us today?
This is my dog Riddle's best friend, Denver. Denver, come on, say hi to the people.
Hey, man.
He is actually placed in dog competitions.
Oh,
he number one in shedding. Number one in fur production every time, and I'm covered with dog hair head to toe. Always am. Not just him. There's so many other dogs. My daughter was being critical of me, and I was like, "Listen, I think this protects me from evil. It's nice seasoning these different dogs. Every dog I meet wants to come meet me because they smell the other dogs on me. It's a nice social thing, and we're having fun. Why are you so critical?" I was like, "I think this protects me from evil." And my daughter said, "Dad, it protects you from women." And I didn't think that was true or nice at all, but I don't know, who knows? I defer to her on every issue. She's the next generation, knows what they're doing. I don't. And I did the best I could raising her, and she's better than me. She's honestly perfect and awesome. And that's all you have to do with your kids to make them. If you want good people, sometimes you have to make them.
Yes.
And that by just, you control their world. It's like our parents were restricting NWA and screaming about Public Enemy. Meanwhile, those groups were 100% correct all along.
Yeah.
But like, I just take advice from my child. I'm like, you're in charge of everything. You know, you run the whole ship, because she's an artist. She's a cartoonist and an animator. She's brilliant. She went to National School of the Arts. She had a great education.
Yeah.
Different high school experience than me. Just surrounded by artists. And then she was like, Chad Epps, dad, father. She calls me father. She's a father, very formal. And she's like, Father, I've seen your starving artist bullshit life, and I don't want that. I don't ever want to make art for somebody I don't like or respect for money because I have to. I want to make art from my heart. And if people like it, great. And if not, who cares? It's something I made for me and not for money for some corporate asshole that doesn't respect me or ever give a crap. Take money and have to do it for the money.
How old is she?
That, so. She's 21 now. She went to, and she was looking at art colleges. Instead, she went to mortuary school, Gupton in Nashville, which is a historic school. And she's like, no matter where I go around the world, people will need care, and their families will need care. Death is a recession-proof job.
Yep.
And she's like, I can do this and then do my art, and I'm not pressured to live in a school bus in the desert like you. And so I was like, yeah, you're in charge of everything, dude. Take over. And she's like, I'm smart enough not to do that. I'm not going to be liable for your nonsense.
She is 21 years old. You have imparted wisdom on her simply by the example that you set. She just kind of went the other way.
And the crimes I committed directly in front of her, with her as an accomplice, and sometimes, you know, an alibi. Like I've trained this child, and like, you know, I hated the neighborhood kids. You have kids, you start talking about kids. No, I never liked anybody else's kids. My child is great, and her friends are usually great, but normal kids just out feral in the streets, no, they're not awesome. And I can't kick their asses, but I put my daughter into Taekwondo, and so she could go out into the yard and just kick their asses. So she would do that, and she was my little hitman. And she still, to this day, she could start kicking my ass when she was about 9, and she started belting and going into tournaments in Taekwondo, and you know, she still can to this day, handily, like no problem. I'll put her up against anybody. That's really why I'm on this show, is because I want to battle my daughter and your children in an arena. Let's dig a pit. I've got a pit. I've got a pit prepared.
A pit. Okay, a pit is way better than an octagon. That's more metal. That's more metal than an octagon. There's no question.
Mine is 22 square feet, and it's this perfect circle. And you bring your children, I'll bring mine. That's all I'm saying to anybody.
Oh, the circumference of violence. I love it. This is going to be great. It's funny, you know, Rupert G and I have bonded over, I've got a granddaughter, and my granddaughter is in MMA, and she just...
How is Rupert G, first of all?
Oh, Rupert's awesome. He's doing great.
Okay. And your granddaughter, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No, don't be. No, are you kidding me? No. But we've bonded over this because Rupert's he's a big UFC fan. And so my granddaughter has been doing MMA for 4 years, and she just had her first tournament. And she absolutely...
I rescind my offer. 100%. It's off the table.
She's only 6.
I talk all the shit, and then other people do my dirty work. How old's your kid?
It's my granddaughter. She's 6. Your daughter's spinning back kick will still handily kick my granddaughter across the circumference of doom, and it'll be fine. But she just
throw 300-pound bodies into incinerators all day long. Yeah, she's a bruiser, dude. I wouldn't put anybody against her.
But we bonded over that. Like I put up on the social medias, you know, my granddaughter just had her first tournament, and Rupert has been basically hanging on. Tell me how your granddaughter is doing. How is she doing? We've done FaceTime calls with her, and it's just, he loves the fact that she's in mixed martial arts at 6 years old.
Yes.
I think everybody
should do it. Everybody should do it. She was always a good kid, but she always had discipline, and she was great. I barely ever had to pat her on the butt, maybe 2 times in her life, and she would scream probably just that the idea that she had disappointed me.
Yes,
but there was a bruiser in the school, and he was going around kicking kids' asses and threatening everybody, and he kicked her in the face on the school bus. He was clotheslining kids on the playground, like, you know, consistently. And then I went and audited the class, and you know, the teacher says, bring out a pencil. Everybody brings out a pencil except for this kid who is fighting somebody for their pencil and chews on it and then throws it across the room. And it's like, I was that kid. Okay. Yes. I understand what that is.
Yes.
You know, that is, you know, a lot of stuff. It's warning signs for a lot of things.
Yep.
I think abuse in my case, and I would guess that kid's too. And they act out in this way, but they have them in the classroom. They're integrated, and they can't get them out. I got sent to the special ed room in first grade, like as soon as within 10 days of school, and I'm sitting there with kids that have severe problems, and I was very insulted. But I understand what they're doing to me too. They're trying to break me.
Yeah,
I was at the principal's office every day, no matter what.
Also, sowing the seeds for you to be a stand-up comedian.
Well, I mean, that's it. I think it's like the defense mechanism of being funny and then having to laugh at stuff that's so horrible and stupid. And like the most frustrating thing to me is I know exactly how dumb I am. And that is extremely frustrating. And that's been a problem my whole life.
Yeah.
And I can't stop saying the thing. So it's like my grandfather was a preacher. My great-grandfather was a preacher. And there was a lot of pressure on me. My parents are in a religious zealots and a cult. And so there's a lot of pressure on me to be a complete dirtbag. And that's really working out. So, but yeah, my defense mechanism was always comedy. You have to see how funny it is. This is crazy. Everything, everything I've ever encountered in my life. That would be if I was a meme on the internet. Just like none of this makes sense and it's stupid. And then they got me reading the Bible, right? These crazy religious people,
right? So
I got in trouble at Bible camp for reading the Bible too much, because I would say it back to them, and I would have something funny about what they're doing wrong, and I would have 3 biblical scriptures like my grandfather taught me. And they don't like that. They don't like when you read their book to them because they don't read it. They just wave it around.
Yes.
And as soon as I realized that the biggest, fakest Christians in my family and in my world were all hypocrites. This guy's drunk and he cheats on his wife 100% of the time. She's on pills to fight the pain, and she's banging everybody in town too. And then they get old and they're all senile and everything's falling apart. And that lie falls apart because their brains have fallen apart and they can't hide it anymore, and they're just screaming, wearing diapers full of their own poo. That's my family. And so it's like it's all, and it's been like that for generations, and I am not supposed to talk about it. They don't like it when I talk about it, but that's where I come from. That's my DNA. My father's a crazy person. He made national news headlines in 2015 for talking to Mother Jones Magazine and telling them they're just cold calling Trump candidate, what do they call them? Delegates.
Yeah.
Trump, they were cold calling Trump delegates trying to find a crazy one. And they found a ringer in my dad. He picked up the phone right away.
Oh, no.
He said a lot of crazy stuff that made print immediately. And among them, he said, anybody who's strayed away from the Constitution and all 3 federal branches of government, it should be, he said, the nice word is removed, but the reality is we want to kill those people with guns, bombs, and tanks. Wow. Anybody in any branch of government who's strayed away from the Constitution. He advocated the assassination and murder of the people you can't say you want to murder. And with guns, okay, yes, those are very popular, very effective. Bombs, where are we getting bombs? But tanks? I like it. Tanks, gun, bombs, and tanks specifically. Well, it's like the local police are armed with tanks. I forgot about that. But whatever. Those are the people that raised me. When he made that national news head, I've got Google alerts set up for everybody in my family. So when my nephew runs a race and he gets number 1, I hear about it. I see the photos in the newspaper.
Yeah.
When my dad says the Mother Jones Magazine,
your dad goes off the rails.
The judicial, the legislative, and the executive branches of the government, his Google alerts started blowing up. So I'm getting all these alerts, and then I look at it, and my dad has said this in this magazine, and so I call him. I call the house. He picks the phone right up. And he's like, "Hey, Chad, how's it going?" I was like, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" And he's like, "Well, I got a couple buckets of beans out of the garden. Corn looks good. Okay, dinner's almost ready. Here's your mom." And I'm like, "No, Dad, no. I have questions for you." And he's like, "Oh, what's that?" And I was like, how are you? Anything going on in your life? He's like, "Oh, your brother fixed that oil leak on the truck. That's about it." I'm like, "Dad, I've been getting alerts about you on the internet." He's like, "Oh yeah, send me the link." Like, I'll send you the 75 links I've compiled so far. Like, this is blowing up.
How are you the first person? How are you the first person to ask you about this?
He was like, "Chad, don't you know those are liberals in California who are trying to take my words out of context so people won't vote for Mr. Trump?" And I was like, "That's who they are. And yes, taking the most interesting quote anybody's said in their lives out of context is the story. And but by all means, publish your full diatribe. That's the part that everybody's mad about. I was like, yeah, what, Dad? Turn off your phone, delete your Facebook page, stop talking to the media. And he was like, well, they've already told me that. I was like, who? The voices you hear from heaven? No, he's like, the Republican Party called me and they said, all those things you just said. I was like, well, then why are you answering your phone? Why is your Facebook still up? Why are you talking? And he's like, Chad, they don't tell me what to do. I do what Mr. Trump says, and that's it. And that's what he told the Tennessee Republican Party. And so they escalated the call to Trump's headquarters, and they called the House.
Right.
And they told my dad the same thing.
This is back in 2015.
Like, no!
This is 2015.
No. He's like, I only take orders from Mr. Trump. And so Donald Trump himself called my dad's house.
Yeah.
And it was assistant. When Dad picked up, they connected, and it's Donald Trump. And he said, Mr. Riden, you need to tone it down. You bring negative attention to the campaign. I assume he said it in less coherent ways over the course of 2 hours.
Oh
but essentially, the craziest person, no matter what you believe about him, he's the craziest person in all of American politics. That's Donald Trump. And I always knew he was a piece of shit because of the Letterman show.
Uh-huh.
I have been watching David Letterman since 1983. I had a babysitter. I was upset. My parents would let me watch the Tonight Show monologue, and then I would have to go to bed on Friday nights only. And so I understood Johnny Carson, and I knew all the jokes, and I loved it, and I could not watch the show if those people didn't die or go away. And so my favorite babysitter was like, of course, watch the entire Tonight Show. And then David Letterman comes on. And I was like, holy shit, what is this?
Yep.
What is this?
Yep.
Because this is not Johnny Carson.
Yep.
This is something completely different.
Yep.
And he doesn't give a shit about anything. And the joke is show business. And the joke is the show and the fact that they have this room full of equipment and they can do whatever the fuck they want with it. And it's chaos. And it's Chris Elliott popping up the walls and God knows what else going on in that program from all these amazing, brilliant people who went on to basically change comedy, to take comedy and shit it out, just eat up everything that was ever comedy before them, and then shit out the greatest show they could. And if it didn't work, fuck it, we try the same thing tomorrow, but change one thing on it, and then run this joke into the ground until everybody's so sick of it and it explodes and it hurts. And then do it again until it's funny again. And I loved that so much.
Yes. Because
as a kid, like my parents are psychos and we did not have pop culture in our home. We had 2 records in the house, Elvis and Tijuana Brass.
And this is in Tennessee? You grew up in Tennessee, right?
Chicago. So my father's from Tennessee, East Tennessee. My mom's from North Dakota.
Okay.
He basically dodged the draft in Vietnam by getting Al Gore Sr. to vouch for him in the Air Force. And so he got in on his recommendation and was classified as a nuclear weapons specialist and deployed in Minot, North Dakota, where all the bombs are, or the Minuteman III silos are. And he was building and doing those things and managing and setting up all those little electronics and bullshit.
Wow.
And a brilliant guy. But like, this is because those guys aren't allowed within 100 miles of a war zone.
Yep.
So that classification keeps him in North Dakota. That's where he meets my mom. I guess they were in South Carolina for a while, where he was working for Duke Power after the Air Force, and he was a whistleblower there. He noticed he was an inspector, a quality assurance engineer is what they call him.
Yep.
And so he goes around and he checks and he found something that was fucked up and he reported it like he's supposed to. It went through the proper channels and they're like, no, that's not a problem at all. And so he went over his supervisor's head and did the same thing like twice, and then went to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and showed them this thing. And it turned out to be, it was a fucked up thing. And it was good we caught it. But they blackballed him in the industry for a while. So he stopped working in nuclear power, sued the United States government for something. I don't understand what it was. I've seen some of the paperwork and it's all legal garbage I don't understand. But I assure you it did not work out, that lawsuit. But kind of a crazy. And then so they get a job. He gets a job working for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and they're based in Chicago, or they had an office in Chicago, I guess. It was actually a very small office in Chicago. It was him and another guy, the local NRC guys. I remember that very specifically. But and then it was just him for a while, and then they closed that office. And so after that office was closed, and so we were in Chicago, West Chicago, when I was a kid.
Yep.
And which is so crazy to me. Okay, so parents were Tennessee and North Dakota. Now we're in Chicago. I figure that's halfway between both their families. It's a hard drive for either of their families, so they can't just show up. I didn't learn that lesson until a lot later in life. But these are crazy people. And so we were latchkey kids. My mom worked for Scholastic, the scam company that would set up a book fair in your elementary school and steal your children's money, steal your money.
Hey, man, I had a Scholastic Return of the Jedi book up until 4 years ago, and I love that book.
I'm very grateful for this company because she walked home with a 1983 Apple IIe setup and every piece of software that Scholastic put out.
Yeah,
and it was cool. It's an incredible library of software, and it was great for a kid. There's typing programs, there's gamified things. There's a lot of really great stuff, and it's all educational and wholesome and whatnot. But I was like, Mom, I want video games. And very smart of her. She was like, no, you have to make your own. And she handed me a book about programming. And so it was Apple Basic programming. That's why she's like, if you want video games, you have to make them. And so that's what I started doing. And I was making these little text games and stuff. And then got into like this friend down the street who's stepdad, I don't know, guy who showed up a lot. He had like some BBC connection on his computer. We had a modem, and he would download games, and he would download bootleg stuff. So we played Bruce Lee and Ultima and all these other incredible games for free off bootlegs. And then me and my little friends would get together and show up with 5 1/4 discs and swap our stolen software to each other and laugh. But I mean, as a kid, I was a latchkey kid, and so I would just go down to the Osco Jewel and I would shoplift Mad Magazine. And I was listening to Weird Al. So because we didn't really have pop culture in the house. I had radio in Chicago, and I really enjoyed like everything I heard on the spectrum. But as far as media in our house and in our car, it was never like anything fun. I didn't know any pop music, but my neighbor across the street had a Nintendo Entertainment System before anybody else. So he had Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and we would go over there every day, no matter what. And his older brother from a previous marriage, father died in Vietnam, tragic story. But Brad had every Weird Al album, and he was very funny himself. But I got copies of Weird Al albums from him, and I played them over and over and over. So my soundtrack to my life is Weird Al on a loop. I have not heard the original versions of these songs in my life. That's secular world. We went to church 5 nights a week. And
wow.
Our music was church music. And every once in a while you get a glimpse of something on the radio, but it's like not exposed to pop culture and not allowed to watch TV either, really. And so, like I'll say, it was a lot of restrictions. So, like, I set the VCR to record Letterman every night. Starting in like 3rd grade, because the sound, I'm exposed to TV shows, reading the Mad parody before I ever see the TV show.
Yeah, that's a very interesting. That's a very interesting perspective. Seeing these things from the comedy satire. Before I think it was A Few Good Men. I was the same thing with A Few Good Men. I saw everything with about A Few Good Men before I actually saw the movie. I saw it years later, and I love little examples of that. But that was your entire spectrum. That's exactly what you saw was the parody before the. Yeah, that's fascinating. I turn on
the radio and I hear these songs, hit songs by the original artists, and I'm like, this is a shitty, unfunny version of Weird Al. Why are you guys ripping off Weird Al? Like the joke in the Weird Al film on Roku, which is excellent. I think the funniest movie that I can remember in decades.
Fantastic.
The big joke of it is, I forget what I'm saying. Hey, this is sponsored by Atomic Dog Water. Stolen by the natives, sold by us. Plastic jugs, Atomic Dog care water.
Chad, you're like a wind-up toy. This is fantastic.
I'm sorry, I eat marijuana buds in the morning with my coffee. I just chew them up. and it gives me it makes me motivated.
Yeah.
My mom always said like it would make me lazy and sit on the couch and eat food, and that's true, but it motivates me, and it's legal here, and I love my life.
Well, I'm from British Columbia, so I know a little bit about that subject. Eating marijuana buds and drinking coffee, that sounds like it goes down smooth.
It really does. It's like it's fibrous, you know. I mean, you can mix it into stuff and be a human about it. I'm very lazy, and I live in a school bus, so I have to simplify, and I have things in containers, and everything has to be in a glass jar, otherwise the mice are going to get it. So I've got nice buds that I grew in jars, and I'll just take one out, and out of laziness, I'll chew up like something, I don't know, about the size of a $50 and drink my coffee. And people are like, it's got to be activated by heat. I was like, listen, I'm hot. First of all, let's start there. But like the coffee does a little something, and it's a different thing, and you're eating the thing, and it's not smoking, which is painful to inhale smoke. You know, but my brother stumbled upon a nice patch in East Tennessee on Bowater land. It's this paper mill that smells horrible, halfway between Knoxville and Chattanooga, and that's pretty much where our acreage is in Tennessee.
Yep.
And on there, you know, they have land that they own, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres, and this little guerrilla pot farmer had like 9 plants out there that were perfectly beautiful and like crystallized red bud with hairs on them and very well manicured in a time where we were getting swag weed that was compressed bullshit, and that's all we ever knew. And this is the craziest shit we've ever seen. So like it was harvest time, and I feel bad that we stole this guy's harvest, but the way he was doing it, he's a pro, and he's got those little gorilla spots everywhere all throughout. You know, not all his eggs.
He's not going to miss one.
Exactly. Well, he will, but boy, we each walked away. 3 brothers. We cut it all down, put it in garbage bags, took it to the top of the mountain, and broke it up sitting on top of my brother's Jeep Cherokee, 79 Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah.
And we had like 9 pounds of bud, and we divided that, so each of us had a bag of 3, and we put it in the freezer, and we'd dry it out, cure it, and share it with whoever. Never sold it. Like, people kept trying to buy it, and we're like, no, what would we do? Take this money and buy shittier weed? This is the best thing I've ever had. And I took those seeds, and I only 2 of them out of 6 seeds out of all that stuff was what we got, and 2 of them were viable, and I grew them, and then I gave them to my brother, and he says they got eaten by deer in the woods, but I don't believe that. But I don't think it'll ever be legal in Tennessee, and it sure is here. And so like the first thing I did was start, because the previous owner of my place had a little grow pit. Yeah, like just to beat the 75-mile winds. I'm at 7,200 feet elevation. Taos is hilariously 69 elevation. Like, we're up here, and the winds can be like 70 miles an hour at a time. So like it's a pit that I've got that will be a Walpini someday that I'll build it out with hyper adobe. But right now it's just a pit, and that's what I grow my crops in. And I was always a gardener. My grandfather's a gardener. So grandfather's a preacher, good guy. I didn't like his fire and brimstone sermons, and sometimes I would go see 3 or 4 of them a week because he was on the circuit in East Tennessee, United Methodist Church, and it's a very poor area. And he would serve sometimes 3 or 4 churches. So you'd get up in the morning and you'd go do a sermon at 7 a.m. and and they would front load it. So he would do the sermon first at that church, and then they would do everything else so he could leave. And he would drive to the second church and do a sermon like whatever, 8:30, walk into a thing already in progress. He shows up, he's the headliner, he says his sermon, and we do the meet and greet, and then we go to the third church. And so he would drive around, and you'd be trapped with him to hear the thing over and over and over, and then see all these people. But the great thing he did was, like, if there was roadkill, and he rode these roads, if there was roadkill rabbit, he would pick it up and he would throw it in the car, and we would take it home and grill it.
Wow.
He was that kind of guy. And he gardened. So he had an acre garden. They were on 3 acres of land in Maryville and Westwood Drive. So if you take Westwood Drive in Maryville, Tennessee, that is my family's driveway. And now there's a neighborhood around it. The house at the end of the original spiral is the Riden house. And so that's where my dad grew up. But yeah, those people. Wow, how did I get off on this? I'm on.
No. It's okay. You're setting the stage for why you went down the path of being a comedian, but also the path of.
How could you not?
Yeah,
they're all preachers. So they're all preachers, and it's just like, and I'm in church, and I'm making everybody mad, and scouts. right? So Scouts is a lot of God and country propaganda bullshit in there.
Yeah.
I was very interested in the camping, the crafting, wilderness survival was my shit.
Yep.
I want to get out here and see everything. I'm really not into hunting, but I will fish. But it's like I want to be out there and I want to dig around and have fun. And that was Scouts. And I never had any, I understand that there was a lot of problems that a lot of people had, and I have not been happy with the organization in general my entire life. They have made some changes in the right direction. But anyway, I was a scout. Everywhere I go, I'm getting into trouble in scout troop, making fun of the scout leader or whatever the fuck we're doing that's dumb. So we're planning food menus, and every single time I would say, let's get spam sandwiches, and the scout leader would just lose his mind because he hates spam, doesn't want spam. This is the kind of guy he's a lot like my pa, where he would take my papa, I used to call him. He would take rabbit, he would make stew, but he would do venison stew too. So like this dude was a Vietnam vet, and he was a medic in Vietnam, but he was trying to get fully automatic weapons at that paper mill plant. He was the head of security at the paper mill plant. It smells like rotten eggs when you drive by, peels the paint off your car. They got showers outside of this paper mill plant because your car, the paint will eat off if you don't rinse this bullshit off of it, and they're right underneath it. So what we would do as kids is take our piece of shit beaters and go down into that parking lot and then do a donut and circle out and get our free little car wash under the thing. And they hated us for that, but what are they going to do? So like we would do that kind of stuff and drive around and vandalize things. But I was writing jokes. I'm consuming comedy. Yeah. And so it's like I've always been obsessed with Monty Python. That was on Nickelodeon. It seemed
absolutely
way sooner than it should have been in my development of my brain, but it's perfect timing. And then I remember like Howard Stern had a satellite show. It was almost like a public access cable looking show, but it was on cable, and my grandparents had cable. My preacher grandpa had cable, so he'd be laying on his bed in his bedroom working on sermons, or in the garden. That's where I got started with this tangent. Garden. He had an acre garden on Westwood Drive, and this preacher would grow food way more than he could do, and he'd sit out there and trap and shoot rabbits and squirrels. But then he would take this food and we'd drive around to all these poor people's places, and his parishioners were very, very poor people, but they were also proud and they didn't want a handout. But the way he would do it was very tricky. He would say, I grew too much and this is going to rot if you don't take it. Take whatever you want. Yep. But he would have a box prepared for them. And so he would just prepare these boxes of food he grew, and he would just drop them off. And that's all he did all day, was driving around to these people. And that's how he would reach out to them. And I went on him with a couple of those runs too. And this is a different person than the guy that was preaching. Right. This is somebody who is fulfilling a need and doing it in a way that respects these people and helps them, and they love them. And that was different than the fire and brimstone preaching. But like everywhere I'm going, I'm calling bullshit on stuff, and I can't not say it. So I was getting kicked out of the principal's office. These are all jokes, and they're hitting. Of course. And it's so crazy to have but then they had a psychological drop in like first grade. I told you I got moved to the special ed room, and they've sent a psychiatrist in to audit the classroom. So, but she had this thing. She wrote up, and she'd met with me a couple times, and I talked to her one-on-one, and then she wrote up this report for them, and I ended up stealing it. I stole my high school transcript folder. I walked in and just stole the folder. I returned it. All I did was I removed any mention of my middle name in it at all. I just blacked it out or cut it out and redacted it completely from record. And I stole one item, this psychological review from first grade. It was still in my high school folder. It had been passed on physically from school district to school district, because we moved to Tennessee when I was 12. I thought, this is so crazy. But what she said about me as a first grader was, Chad never, ever raises his hand in class to answer a question. Yep. But every time called on, he has the right answer. He appears bored, and he is just doing whatever he can to entertain himself. And that's literally what she said, but it also could be my bio for everything I've ever done.
Pretty bang on at 6 years old. Bang on.
Constantly in trouble. And it's just me, rebelling against my father, or the absence of a father. Like my third grade teacher, Rhonda Brown, Jewish woman, hilarious. And in class, if kids screamed out, Jesus, she would say, he's not here and he's not coming back. And she denies that. I've talked to her about this as an adult, and she blames her ex-husband, Joetti Brown. She says, no, that may have been something Joe said, but I would never have said that. I'm like, bullshit. I heard that in class every single time. She may not remember it, but that's what I loved her so much. And she saw in me a problem child who was constantly in trouble. And what she gave me was attention. And she would ask me to stay after class. She was a neat teacher, is a neat person. She would have little raffles every day where you could win a stuffed animal, just a stupid plushie. And she would have like orange juice breaks in the afternoon. And, so you break out the cups, you break out the orange juice. There's people who serve. There's tasks to do. She also, managed the school stores. There's a little cart upstairs at the top of the ramp. There's a ramp between 2 floors, the first through third graders, and then third grader, fifth graders upstairs. And so the top of the ramp, big school store. She gave me a job at the school store.
Yep.
And she would have me do stuff after class. And she introduced me to her husband, who was an artist, a visual artist. I drew all the time. And this guy, Joetti Brown, wonderful man. They basically saw I needed an adult male model, an adult role model that was positive and present.
A little bit different than an adult male model, but yeah.
Adult male model is what I do now for a living. Please follow me on OnlyFans. It's the only way we make money as comedians. OnlyFans. It's not a bit. Everybody laughs when I say it. Follow me on OnlyFans. No, okay. Thank you. No, it's so like all these things are crazy. I don't know. I'm a crazy person, but like I started writing jokes, and I have a notebook. I've always had a notebook in the back of my pocket.
Yep.
At all times with whatever I'm writing right now.
Yep.
And so I started writing stuff and sending them to the show. And I thought, Dave uses cards. I'm going to write on index cards and drop them in the mail. They're cheaper to mail. Postcards are cheaper to mail than a letter.
Yep.
Also, the letter, the satisfying action of opening it up, but that's wasting people's time. Dave's format here is the card, mail in, shit on a card. That's what they're doing.
Yep.
And so I started doing that, and I'm sure other people had that same idea. I don't think that's unique, and I don't think that set me apart at all. And so I was sending stuff in, but I wasn't getting anything back. I certainly wasn't getting letters on the air, which was what I was intended here.
You want to be on the mailbag.
Viewer mail was the biggest.
Yep.
Where it's like, if you could do that, like, look at, like, what's his name? The comedian, Todd Barry. So Todd Barry, for all of his achievements, and I love everything about him and his crowd work tour, and every time I've ever seen him live and had the chance to talk to him, beautiful, brilliant, wonderful man. I've always admired on TV. But that's what he said was getting that letter on viewer mail was his highlight. Yep. And I believe it. Yeah, I absolutely believe that 100%. That's what I wanted. And I wasn't getting that. And like I said, so these people who raised me, I have no boundaries. I got arrested for the first time when I was 12. It was assault with a deadly weapon. It's a long story. I won't tell it. BB gun, and I was a child. We were on family property in the Carolina mountains, and we had a lodge. And the Appalachian Trail was right there through the backyard, and people would break into the house and steal stuff. And so this, as my premise, we come back from a hike, and there's this lady on the property, and people had broken in. So I'm like, get out of here, lady. And this big, heavy lady gets up, and she pulls out a gun. She pulls out a 9mm, and I had, of course, my strap. So I had a Daisy BB gun tucked into the small of my back, and I pulled it out, and I shot at her 3 times, and I rolled behind a rock. I'm not lying at all. My brothers were there. They scattered. She does not shoot back at me. She has a 9mm, a Beretta, and she's waving it like this. She's brandishing a weapon, and that's when I shot her. And so and she goes running down the trail. She just runs, and she runs away. A couple hours later, the cops show up and they arrest me, assault with a deadly weapon. It was a BB gun, bruised her breast. It did give her a blister on the boob. Yep. And I was very proud of that. Yeah. But like, they gave me community service. And so I chose to register voters at the local swap meet every Saturday morning in Athens, Tennessee. And so I just used this opportunity to talk to people and talk to girls. And that's where I met, the first girl I ever went on a date with. It's like, it was a nice thing for me, having a table out in the middle and doing something, registering people to vote. Yep. So like, you have the premise of I'm a Boy Scout, also a Boy Scout in town, who happens to get in trouble, get arrested for assault on daily weather.
Yeah, you're that Boy Scout. Yeah.
I am. I'm an Eagle Scout, damn it. I'm an Order of the Arrow Eagle Scout.
Wait a second. No, you're like an Eagle Scout?
Oh, absolutely.
Holy
this was my
cow,
entire identity. We were forced to do scouts, and we were forced to do every single sport. So I had to play baseball, basketball. Yes. I had to do it all. And my dad coached basketball one year and was the worst coach I could possibly imagine. He would teach us to foul people on purpose and do all kinds of dickhead stuff. And it's like, my name's Chad. All right. I cannot go clowning fuckers physically and have this name. If I would have known that my name would be the archetypal teen angst movie bad guy, I would have gone by my middle name, Mega Chad. Fuck you, still Chad, double Chad. No, it's awful, but Michael's my middle name. That's what I erased from my school records. And it's also what I think I want to change my name to, because Chad is the male Karen. It's the douchebag frat douche in every movie. So yeah, I can't be. You have to be very careful. I'm not that person. Not all Chads is my hashtag. Not all. And I think this is what led me to start the Holy Motherfucking Chaditarian Church. All of this things. So like I used to run this nonprofit Nashville stand-up. I inherited this website in 1999. Yep. And I built this community in Nashville. There was one comedy club and one open mic a week, and me and my friends. What I told everybody was, if you don't like this show, if you don't like the way it's being run, if you don't think you're getting enough stage time, start your own show.
Yes.
Go ask any bar what's their shittiest night. And tell them you'll bring in idiots that'll buy beer. Yep. And it shows all how it's done. Yep. And anytime you have any criticism of me, there's a lot, but and there should be, but like anytime you don't like it, if you're not getting enough stage time, start your own show. Every single comedian should have their own show and run it, because what is the ultimate job? What do you want? It's the host of the Tonight Show. Yep. That is the best job in comedy. Yep. Hosting the Oscars, it's a comedian every single time if they're smart. Yeah. It's the best job is the MC. And so many people are like, I don't want to MC. I want to one of the best things Brian Dorfman and Zany's Nashville told me, brilliant man, who gave me an entire career. But he said, like, if I have a good MC, if I have a good host, he's like, I don't book you for your jokes. I book you for your personality. Yes. That's not something I can teach somebody. You can write new jokes and better jokes, and I hope you do. But I cannot. Like, what I'm paying for is your personality. And and that meant that was an enabler in a way, where you're a little more freedom, because it's like, okay, you can relax a little bit, but also try harder. You're not funny enough. Get going. Yeah. That kind of thing. I don't know what I'm even talking about anymore. I'm very
okay. I wanna bring in some Letterman stuff here. And we got lots of places.
I'm sending jokes to the show.
Right. But okay, hold on. Before you're sending jokes to the show, was AFL a thing? Because you're talking about being part of this like old Telnet early on. AFL was originally
so I had
then.
an Apple IIe, and we lived in the woods. We did not have a modem.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the kids on the hill about 3 miles away had a modem, but not. And we got on BBS boards, but not enough for me to establish myself as my own presence. Okay. And so I broke into a utility in a small town, and I stole a personal desktop computer in about 1995. Yeah. And looted that in a Xerox machine. And that became my little desktop publishing enterprise in Knoxville when I moved there. Yeah. And I got on before the university even gave me my login to get Telnet access. Yeah. I was on Prodigy. Prodigy would give out little free trial discs, and you could try Prodigy for 9 days or whatever. So you would create a bullshit email address, Hotmail, whatever, and bullshit account on Prodigy and sign in and use their internet. And so there were Prodigy forums about pop culture, basically replicating Usenet, I think. Yes. And so I got on there immediately, and it's David Letterman and Gru and Weird Al and Monty Python and my favorite things. And literally everybody's like AFL. And so I figured out what
alt.fan.letterman, by the way. That's for
alt.fan.letterman. Is that it?
Yep.
I don't really know these people very well, but it's very fascinating to me, their journey. But I found that, and I would type. It's not; these are bullshit internet accounts. So I'm not using my real name yet, and I would type in these stupid capital, lowercase, combination, troll speak.
Sure.
It's known now. Well, at that time, like my handwriting was atrocious, but that was literally my handwriting. It was graffiti-like. I turned in a paper handwritten, a film class at UT Knoxville, like 94, 5 or 6, somewhere around there.
Yep.
And like as they're returning papers to the class, the instructors were like, "Some people's handwriting is really something. Very creative, but not legible. And so if we could all start typing everything instead of handwriting things." And I know that it was directed at me because my handwriting was that awful. But that's how I typed on the internet. Yep. So I started interacting on the FL forums, and I don't remember what that was. It was probably all from the heart. Chad Riden being true to himself and trying to be funny, but probably very troll at times. But like I burned through those accounts a lot, and then I got on the university thing, and I signed in as my real name, I believe, at some point. But yeah, this was a group of Letterman fans who watched every night or videotaped and watched whenever they got off their shift. And, you know, they wanted to talk about the show, and there were recaps and people busting balls, and certainly trolls and weirdos and probably a lot of people who were dead. You know, it's just really connecting with your people on the internet. And my parents would make fun of your internet friends, but it's like, we started meeting in real life pretty quickly and going to see Dave, going to enjoy, like wrapping your head around. These people don't, my parents did travel, but the people in these small towns, they just don't travel. And that is the problem. It's because they don't have any perspective. There's no sense of adventure. They're trapped in this little bubble of a world.
Yes.
Like my parents are now and everybody else in their cult. But they used to travel. And if you don't travel, you don't see other things and see other cultures and become, appreciative for what you have.
Yeah.
As critical as I am of it, as full of shit as all those people are.
Sure.
I'm happy with who I am and where I'm at. And so everything that happened along the way, I understand is what led to this. And so it's like, I wouldn't go back in time. I love Doctor Who so much, but I'd go into the future. Because if I went, if I went to the past and I fucked up something worse than I did now, I can't do that.
By the way, props for the Gru reference earlier. That makes my heart smile.
Here's a Letterman tie-in. Mark Evanier wrote Gru with Sergio Ignones, my favorite Mad Magazine artist.
Yep.
And I love Mad Magazine. I was obsessed with it.
Yep.
And I walk into an airport and there's a spiral comic book thing at a Walgreens type store right up front in the airport. And I'm flipping through the comics and I find Sergio's Gru. I think a Marvel Epic issue 32. Yeah. It's the pirates and Gru's underwater, and it's a beautiful blue splash. And I recognized the art immediately. I knew that was Sergio. Yep. And I grabbed it. I didn't know this comic existed.
Yep.
And I ran and I bought it. And in North Dakota, my cousin also loved Gru, specifically Gru. Only comic book he had.
Yep.
And so he just handed me a box of them and I read them all. And now I'm a Gru collector, right? So immediately I buy everything that he's ever done, and I've always been up to do with it. And I've had letters. That was the first comedy of mine that was ever published, was in the letter page of Gru.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I think that was issue 87, something like that, of Marvel Epic Run. And I've had 2 or 3 more published by him because Mark is very, very funny. And I thought his humor and Letterman and Monty Python, and then you look back on all the other things that Mark has written, from creating the Bible for the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons TV show, which I loved, the cartoon. He wasn't involved with the day-to-day production, but he did the Bible. He wrote the show.
That is cool.
That was the template for all the episodes. So it's like, this man is genius level. And I loved his work in Gru, and I thought he was very funny. He was active in alt.fan.letterman on Usenet.
Oh, no kidding.
Or at least lurking, but would chime in occasionally. Yeah. And then there was a Gru mailing list. So there was stuff on Usenet, but we quickly went to an email list. and Mark was always on that, obviously,
Yep.
and very responsive, always very kind to me and encouraging. I would make, I was also writing and sending letters to them.
Yep.
So like, and I'm an artist, and so I would draw a beautiful dragon breathing fire and their addresses in the fire burst, color it all, and drop that in the mail. And I did like that to Mark to send my jokes and my letters in for the letters page. And so that's how I got his attention with the art. And I did that with Letterman too. I would draw giant late night logos on the envelope and make it and draw Dave. I like pointillism and ink art. And so I drew Dave as best as I could and had him like Sergio little fade out in the corner and like all this artistic shit, but I wasn't hearing back from the Letterman people. Okay, I'll get it back on track. Yep. And so I started. I at this point I wrote a letter. I was in high school, and so I was writing. I had to do a research paper, so I was going to research the life of David Letterman. Yep. And I've done this before. It's like the importance of messages in hip hop. I did that. Like anytime there's a school assignment, I'm writing about something I care about, not you.
Absolutely.
And so I'm writing a paper about Letterman.
Yep.
And I send a letter to the postmaster in New Canaan, Connecticut, and I was like, "Sir, I understand David Letterman lives within your zip. And I'm writing a paper about him. I'm a student in high school and a fan of comedy. And I just wanted to know if any of your mail delivery people or staff had interactions with David Letterman, because it'd be interesting to hear the viewpoint from somebody who lives in his town and services him versus whatever the tabloids say." And he wrote me back a beautiful letter, well thought out, and he basically said, Dave does not receive mail at his house. He has a post office box here at the office, and he comes in about once a week, usually on a Saturday, and isn't very talkative, but he's a polite man, and he gets his mail, and he's very genial, and we see him once a week. And I was like, well, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Yep.
But now I know that Dave has a P.O. box in New Canaan, Connecticut.
That's a pay dirt right there for where you're at. Yep, absolutely.
I have talked to the postmaster. So now I'm taking my postcards and mail and stuff, and I'm sending them to David Letterman, P.O. Box ? New Canaan, Connecticut, zip code.
Yep.
And they're going to him, and he's getting them, and he's picking them up every Saturday. So now, I don't know. I start getting stuff back. I started getting like late night hats. I got a late night baseball hat one time. I asked for an autographed picture specifically, and I got one.
Nice.
8 by 10 black and white, beautiful. Gold Sharpie on it.
Over the face or not over the face?
No, well, I'll have to look at it. I've got actually a couple autographs. I sent him a TV guide one time, and they and the return postage prepaid envelope, and it was signed and returned to me. So I've got that in gold as well.
Fantastic. Yep.
Kind of badass shit. And I started getting tickets to the show.
Yep.
And occasionally I would get tickets to the show, and I could not go because I was a child, and I like, sure, you could be 16 to get in, but my parents were not going to let me go to New York City. But I remember, like, I was a senior in high school, and I was talking to this one girl, and her father was rich. He was a dentist, and I was telling her, I was like, yeah, if you buy her plane tickets, like, I've got tickets to Letterman, and that was my deal. That was how I was asking people on dates when I was in high school. But I couldn't go, and so then I don't know. When I turned 18, I got tickets to the show at some point, and I was like, yes. And so it was going to be June 7th, 95, and my brother's birthday is June 8th. And I was like, we'll have a fun birthday trip. We'll go to New York City, take Greyhound bus from Athens, Tennessee to New York City. We'll see the show. We'll grab a slice of pizza. We'll fucking come home.
Yep.
And because we don't have any money for a hotel, we're on a bus.
Yep.
That's a journey. Yep. And he's like, yeah, let's go. So that's what we did. And like the bus, after we transferred in DC, like somebody in the back lit up a joint, and the driver screamed out, "It was like, you can't do that. You can't do that. We just left the station." And the dude goes, "Oh yeah?" and they pop out the emergency back window.
Oh no.
And it goes bouncing down the interstate. I was trying to sleep. I was trying to lay down. It wasn't that late, 9 p.m., but the lights are out. I'm not
what a
in
gong
business.
show.
And I've turned back and you see cars dodging across 9 lanes of traffic, trying to miss this windshield. That was the journey to New York City. But we got there and we showed up at the Ed Sullivan Theater and got in line, did the thing. They had a questionnaire.
Yeah.
They were handing out. And so I filled this out. And to look, I took a picture of it. To look at it now, it is the most insane. I filled every square inch of it with jokes, all ideas for the show. I told them the props I brought with me, what we were capable of doing, and it was nightmarish shit. But if you were a segment producer, whatever intern was picking these up this day really blew it, because I gave them the blueprint. But
wow.
But yeah. Anyway, so we go to the show and we enjoy the show. It was wonderful.
Do you remember who was on?
The first time we went and saw Letterman?
Yeah.
I should have probably prepped for this show.
No, it's okay. June 95. We can figure that. June 7th, 95. We can
June
figure
7th, 95, as far as I remember.
We can figure that out. Yeah.
So anyway, after the show's over, they're like, all right, thanks for coming. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
And, they open the doors, which is what you do at a show. This is a show. This is not a fucking bar. We're not hanging out.
Yeah.
So we go out and we walk around the corner and we grab a slice of pizza right at that place.
Yep.
And we sit down and we're talking. It's crazy. It's fun. We have about an hour, and then I'm a psycho and I know Dave's schedule. I know that Dave finishes the taping, goes upstairs, watches the taping, and then gets in his car and goes home. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, it's been an hour. I said we settled up our bill. I said to my brother, I was like, all right, are you ready to meet Dave? And he's like, shut up. And then I was like, it was me. And we walk out and we go down to 53rd Street, half a block away, turn right, and there is David Letterman standing right out in front of that entrance. There's about 9 women around him, and they're getting autographs and shit. And I'm like, my brother's like, holy shit. I was like, I know. And so I put myself in Dave's shoes, and I thought, would I want some sweaty little kid who hasn't showered in a couple of days, who just got off of a bus, running up to me and interrupting these beautiful women or fanboying out like a goober? No, that's uncool. But I saw Laurie Diamond standing off to the side. Yep. And I walked over to her very nonchalantly and I said, are you his bodyguard tonight? And that got a laugh. And she's like, no, that's him over here. She's part of the giant, enormous man. And but I got a laugh out of her. And, so I told her my name and she was like, we love your jokes.
Oh, like, God, how good was that? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. She was like, Dave thinks you're very funny. And I was telling her my plans at the time, which were to go to Ball State and follow in Dave's footsteps, whatever the hell. Yeah, let's do radio, TV, and then we're writing and doing comedy on television. Yeah, because there's no internet at the time, really. And at that point, it was still dial-up. Like I say, at my friends' places, BBS boards. There was no Google. You could read books from the library, but it's all like Milton Berle books. Yeah, and there's a Steve Allen book, which is really wonderful, How to Be Funny. And it's very formulaic joke writing. Yeah. And it's like, I read that, but that's not how to be funny. That's how to write jokes.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So like, there really wasn't a path, but I look at it and I'm like, having been obsessed with Dave's show, it's like, okay, now there's a stand-up comedian. Dave's job is very cool. And I thought I wanted to do that job. I certainly thought I wanted to write for him. Yep. And do that type of comedy and be around those types of people who were creating that type of comedy. Because as you know, all of our pop culture was changed by these people. Yes. And the projects that they went on to do, and their children who are making incredible things now. Yep. So it's like, these are the brains that have been comedy forever. And they would present these comedians. So Seinfeld would show up, Leno would show up, Bill Hicks would show up, and Gary Shandling. And these incredible people would come on and do 5-6 minutes, and then sometimes panel. And just see those over and over. I was like, oh, that's the better job. Yeah. Like, they're not
observing the whole thing.
The office. Yep. These dudes are showing up for TV and then they're going back to a comedy club. That's what it's about. Yep. But I'm still like in broadcasting. classes, whatever. I'm getting off track. We're in the middle of talking about meeting
But
Dave.
Lori loves your jokes. Lori loves your jokes.
Lori,
Like that.
Lori
That must have
likes the
felt.
jokes. She
That
was
must have felt
encouraging
so
me.
good.
So I was going to go. Yeah. So I was telling her I'm going to follow Dave's footsteps, broadcasting school, and she was telling me about the internship program. She was like Janice Panino and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And so anyway, we're in conversation now, and as we're talking, I didn't notice this until he was right next to me. But Dave had been moving closer and closer and closer. As these women are getting their autographs from him, they're walking away satisfied, and the next one gets their turn for an autograph.
Yeah.
Right. And as this is happening, he's just inching closer and closer to his security blanket, Laurie Diamond, and big, enormous security man, literally standing right there watching me, watching Dave very professionally, I should say. But so now he's shoulder to shoulder with me. There's another guy. He's got a stack. Everybody else had like a scrap of paper or something.
Yeah.
An envelope.
Yeah.
And this guy walks up with a stack of 8.5 by 11 black and white Lettermans.
Yeah.
And he hands Dave a pen. He's like, "Could you sign one for my sister? Yeah. Could you sign one for my cousin?"
Yeah.
And Dave signs about 8 of them.
Wow.
And Dave says to him, "You're selling them," but he's still signing. And the guy goes, "No, this is for my cousin." He goes, "You're selling them."
Not personalizing them though. I got 2 of them, and they're both say "to Mike" on them. Like that's
right.
a different. Yeah.
So this, I think I saw something special, because Dave's signing them, but he's not ruining them.
Yeah.
But he's signing them, but he says, "You're selling them."
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "No." And I'm standing right there. I was like, this cheese dick, like I said, what did I fucking say? Oh gosh, I don't know. I said something funny. I was very critical of this man.
Yeah.
And I kind of went off on him. And then he walked off after a while. Like he walked off, like very quickly he walked off.
Yeah.
And so Dave turns to me, and all I have on me for him to sign is my joke notebook in my back pocket. And so I pull out my notebook, and I just flip it to the next page, and he signs. He's like, "What's your name?" And I was like, "Chad Riden." And he was looking down at the paper, and he just looked up at me, and I don't know if I could do it, but he just gave me a look. And it was just a pause. He wasn't writing anything. He was processing that he is talking to Chad Riden.
Yeah.
And but then just a pregnant pause. And then he signs it to Chad, David Letterman.
Yeah.
And he's starting to hand it back to me. And I'm nonstop talking. I don't know if you've noticed that about me, but I was like, Dave, thank you so much. I offered him, I was like, "Would you like a root beer?" I gave him a can of root beer I had with me. And he did accept that. He wanted that. But I was like, thank you so much. Nobody will believe this. But listen, I've applied for Ball State University. And he goes, "Oh, good for you." And I was like, no, they're not going to let me in. I'm a shitty student, C grades, and I'm out of state. So I don't think they're going to let me in. Yeah. He's like, "You're nuts. They'll take anybody." And I said, "No, I'm not going to make it. I'm not that good." And I've seen my school records, and they're not good. And but I said, "With a letter of recommendation from you, they'll let me in." And so he smiles, and he just turns the page on my book, and he writes, "Let him in, David Letterman." And he hands that back to me. And I was like, "All right, that's it. That's all I needed. Thank you so much."
That's a great move. That's such a good move.
Yes. And I was like, "Can we get a picture? Nobody will believe this." And he was like, "Yes." And so I hand the camera to Laurie Diamond. She reaches out for it immediately. And it's a Kodak Instamatic disposable you get from Walgreens. Yeah. And so Dave's trying to get into his car, which is a red Dodge Stealth.
Yep.
Standing behind the car in the street. Dave's ready to open the door and get into that car. And he says, "This is where we're doing the photo." And so Laurie's got the car in frame somewhat, but a really beautiful shot of me and my brother Eric and David Letterman, and me, I am wearing a Comedy Central t-shirt. My brother's wearing a Worldwide Pants t-shirt. We wore the shirts of the band to the bar, you know.
Yep.
So like, but we're cheesing ear to ear. And
Yeah.
you see that security guy's face. He's a very dark complected man, and it's the theater behind it is poorly lit. It's dark at night,
Yep.
and it's all dark anyway. But you see this man's face. If you zoom in, it is directly there next to David Letterman. Eyes bulge out, waiting for me. What? Grab his ass? What's happening here? Listen, I understand security. He was doing his job. It was wonderful, but it was also very funny. So while we're posing for the photo, I say to Dave, I was like, "It is my dream to succeed you as host of this show." And he's like, "Yeah, not even a break, not even a pause at all. Yeah, be here tomorrow at 5." And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
Can I tell you my little back and forth with him real quick, because that's when I made him laugh.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
It was
Dave stories are the best. I collect them like kittens meows.
Yeah. No, it's the same thing, because to me, my gold standard in the highlight was the exchange at the Q&A. I'm sorry, I've told this story so many times, but that feeling though of him with the gunslinger with the fastest draw in the West of wit, and it's the best in the world. Like I said to him, I wanted a jacket. I was being a brat. I was asking about Leno. I was asking about Brian Williams. This is a month before they retired.
What did you ask him about Leno?
I asked him about Leno. Are you going to have him on the show? Like it was April 20th, 2015. It was 1 month before the retirement. And so I asked, are you going to have Brian Williams? Are you going to have Jay Leno on the show before you retire? And also, hey, where do you get one of them sharp jackets that everybody seems to have? Rupert doesn't sell them.
Okay, so I was in communication with Al Shez for a long time. I want the Late Show jacket with this logo on it.
Yeah.
They didn't. I forget what year, but there was one jacket that's very beautiful. I like the stitching. And Al like had flirted with me about it, like he's ready to sell a jacket, but I had not followed through the transaction. So that's all I want out of life. That late night logo is my favorite style. I was forced to play every sport, and I hate every damn one of them now. Yep. And those meatheads are the center of my nerd versus jock battle that has fueled every bit of hate in my entire life. Yep. The people I've been fighting my entire life, my dad, these Trump cards, they are still the problem now. I've been right 100% of the time. And these people have all been wrong and awful. And to see their bullshit, like my family, their belief system, it's a house of cards.
Yes.
You pull out any one of these fucking lies and the whole thing tumbles.
So those jackets represent that.
This show was anti bullshit.
Yeah.
Beginning, we're cutting through this bullshit. Look, there's the guy with the cue cards. There's the fat ass on the camera. Look at him roll this way and bang into something. Like, it's so funny to me to not take it seriously and to just enjoy whatever the fuck is in the room.
Yes.
And my favorite game now, like Doug Stanhope has this great bit about how he would kill himself, and it's this crazy elaborate thing that's very hilarious. But that got me started thinking, and so now anywhere I go where I'm bored, I just look around the room and see what could I kill myself with, and that's the game I play right off the bat before we do anything else. Is using the tools we have around us in this room. How would I hilariously die? So yes, there's an extension cord over there. I'm stringing up over these lights, and I do it dangling right in front of this cashier, blocking the way, knocking Twix bars and fucking Skittles left and right, and hang myself right there like that. And so that's the game I play in my head all the time, which is crazy. And so I don't know. So like when I was in Knoxville working in television, right?
Yeah.
So as a student, I was in another school, and then I went to transfer to UT. So I was leaving Hawassi College, liberal arts, 2-year Methodist school that gave me money. All we did was do drugs and have sex in the woods with other hippie kids, and get kicked out of that school. Me and all my friends.
Sounds like a good gig.
And I was writing down jokes, and we'll be on mescaline, and I'm sitting there with my joke book writing down jokes, and people it's interrupting the flow of being in the moment, looking people in their eyes and having fun while you're rolling around. But it's like, I have to write this down or I'm going to forget it.
Yep.
And so like I've always had this book in my back pocket writing these jokes down. But then, okay, so I'm off track again. So Laurie encouraged me to
Hold
apply
on.
for
I
the
want
internship
to say
program.
that the moment of him saying to you, "Come back tomorrow night at 5," for
Oh,
me,
yeah.
it was, hey, how can I get one of these jackets? And he's like,
Oh,
"These
God.
jackets are, you have to work here. It's cold in the studio. You have to work
Yeah.
here." And
Explained it.
I said, got an application. And
Yeah.
Letterman immediately laughs like but then again, without that hesitation, he goes, "Yeah, come see me in a month." So it's a similar deal.
I understand it. And I like at the moment, I thought that's hilarious.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
what I realize now is that Dave told me what to do and I didn't do it. Honestly, like
June
I'm so
8th.
upset with myself because like we
Where
had
the
a
hell were
bus,
you
we
on
had to get
June
back
8th?
to the bus. I didn't expect him to say, "Hey, come back here tomorrow." You know what I mean? And so stupidly, we got on a bus and we headed home because I had a ticket. What the fuck am I going to do? I don't have $45 more.
No.
Um, but I wrote him a letter.
Yeah.
In the moment, I thanked him and I said, "Here's my jokes, whatever 3 jokes it was. This is in a letter this time, not on a postcard."
Yep.
And I was like, thank you for taking the time to take a photo with me and my brother. Meeting you means as much to me as it would have meant for you if you had met Johnny Carson when you were 18 years old.
Yeah.
And he took a photo of you and said funny things.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because you did not have to do that.
Yeah.
You did not have to take the time to take a photo with us. And that meant the world to me. Thank you so much. And there's my 3 bullshit jokes about whatever was farting in Rolling Stone or TV Guide that week. And and then I was working a swimming pool liner job overnight shift, 3 people on us in Etowah, Tennessee for that summer. And it was overnight. And so I came home in the morning and went to bed. And when I woke up in the afternoon, my mom had set a letter or a note on the place where I eat at the table. And it said, "Chad, call Laurie Diamond, 212-975-5300, whatever the hell." And and I was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Holy shit." Because I always put my phone number at the bottom of any letter, right? I wanted to call. While I was sleeping, my mom took a message from Laurie. And so I called back as soon as I see this note. And whoever answers the phone was like, "Yeah, they're taping a show right now." I actually know the schedule better than this, but I'm so excited. I didn't even consider it. But I just called back later, like whatever, an hour later, and Laurie picked up the phone and she was like, "Yes, we got your letter. Dave enjoyed. Thinks you're very funny. He enjoyed meeting you and your brother, which he says he appreciates that you are so well groomed." Which he thinks is rare for your generation. And I got a gross beard now. I had about a 6-inch goatee and not a full beard. And I was bald headed and I'd shaved it, baby butt sheen shaved every day. A lot of razors. And that's what I looked like. I looked like I belonged in the mosh pit on MTV more than anything else. But that was very funny. And she's like, "Dave told me to tell you he wants to encourage you to apply for the David Letterman scholarship in Ball State. And I want to reiterate applying for the internship program." And I just thanked her. I was like, "Thank you so much. You're the greatest. Like, this is the greatest." It was all her, right? It was all her mailing the shit to me and seeing this correspondence. And then bumping into the next level and sending it to Dave's PO box. But that was his right hand person.
That was absolutely Laurie was his for a lot of years. She was his right hand, literally.
And she was so kind to me, so nice to me, and such a delight to talk to. And it's like, you'd seen her on the show as Rose or whatever, but then I don't know, just kind of cool. And so anyway, I go back to UT and I tell them, I'm like, "Listen, I want to apply for an internship with David Letterman." And all my credits didn't transfer. I come from a fucking Christian school in East Tennessee and, trying to go to UT where they're trying to make some money. So all these credits didn't transfer. These, classes where you're studying the origins of the Old Testament and the Gospels. Surprise, surprise. So they wouldn't let me go and do a Letterman intern. They're like, "Absolutely not. Only juniors and seniors, and you're actually classified as a sophomore there, buddy." And so I was like, "Well, shit." And but I was working in the Center for Telecommunications and Video for the university. I just walked in. I was like, who does the video shit here? And so I walked into their office. The broadcasting department was like, we don't hire shit. We have classes. And so I went downstairs to the PBS station on one side of the hall and Center for Telecommunications and Video on the other. Talked to both of them. PBS didn't want any piece of me, but Telecommunications Video hired me. So I met this guy, video producer there, and put in an application, and I did a photocopy of "Let Him In, David Letterman" as my cover letter.
Yep.
And so this guy wanted to talk to me immediately, and ended up being the greatest, and hired me to direct 4-camera classroom, long distance classrooms on video. So I'm sitting there eating a sandwich while I'm punching a classroom at college, where I also work at the radio station.
Yep.
And am doing broadcasting classes. But I started there but I got a job. So it's like, now we're doing the coaches show, me and other paid staff in the studio for the Phil Fulmer show, and on the field for all the football games. Usually doing a parabolic mic, but I would volunteer for whoever. So like, I was part of the telecommunications crew. So like every basketball game, I was there on camera, too, up on the side on the right.
Yep.
Forever. And sometimes with the camera on the floor under the basket, I didn't really like that as much. I like to sit down. I like to take a drink while I'm doing shit. But I did that, and then I would volunteer. I would walk down to the football games and I would volunteer. I would just say, whoever, Sunshine Network, or ESPN, whoever the hell was broadcasting the game that day, I would just walk down and say, I'm a broadcasting student. This is the volunteer state. I work every single one of these games as a volunteer. I'll work for you. What are you doing in production? What do you need help with? Pulling cables, hauling shit around, doing the mic. And they were like, yep, come this way.
Yeah.
And I would do that every single week, no matter who it was, contracted. And they would always pay me and make me fill out the paperwork at the end of the shift.
Yep.
And I would get a check, and I'm getting money for that. And then they would remember you, and you're just the guy who walks down off the hill and helps out for a while, goes up to the press box, fills his pockets full of hot dogs, and and walks out. So I was that guy, and then a local radio. And then it's like, I was working, then I wanted to work for the local CBS station, right?
Yeah.
So I walked into their office and the same deal. And so they hired me to work in production, and I was doing like teleprompter. And it was awesome because at that time it was a paper that you taped down and put on a conveyor belt with a camera over it. This equipment from like the 70s that was in this old mom and pop TV station. And so I ran a teleprompter for the shows. And I would always put a joke, like at the end, the last page is always something stupid, like, have a good night, this is Sam Brown.
Yeah.
And like, he doesn't need the script to say he's at WKXT. Good night. So I always retyped my own one of those and inserted my own page of copy there. And they never, ever once said anything I said, and it would have always been hilarious. But then they would laugh. And so, like, the end, they're laughing. We got out of the commercial, but they're laughing at me, but they're not saying the funny thing I wrote for them, which is extremely frustrating. And I kept pitching like show ideas to this local TV station, but they're not interested in producing comedy shows.
No.
And I'm trying to get all my friends to do public access with me, and I couldn't get together enough people.
I was going to ask you.
That had their shit together to do this right.
Yeah. You're the perfect prototype for a cable access host somewhere. You're like a Tom Green type character. You're the perfect for that.
I'm so mad. Well, because I love Tom, and I loved him on MTV, and then I've seen all the other stuff before that, of course. I have had the chance to work with him a couple times at Zany's and elsewhere, and one of the coolest people in the world, for sure. And I feel very grateful for everything. I deserve nothing, but I've gotten everything. But one of the great gifts in life was to do a week of shows with Tom Green at Zany's on a week that it snowed even. And so he wanted to go out every night. And he would go to a bar. I learned something about fame. I've been around famous people before. Certainly. To me, there's nobody bigger than David Letterman in my mind as far as comedy royalty and, of course, with respect to everybody else who's alive and everything. But this was my guy. This was my guy who I thought who brought all the cool other guys who were funny and gals who were funny to me and showed me, introduced me to all these incredible minds and really brought me into this world of people who I still love to this day. And it's the whole world I love. It always has been the center of all my shit. And that's what's so disturbing is like Donald Trump used to come on that show and he was a buffoon. It was always a goddamn scam. It was always some stupid fucking belt or like a bacon or some garbage he's selling. The slumlord idiot that Dave just clowned.
Was there Trump bacon? That would be great. Trump bacon.
Tell me there's not. If you do a Google search for Trump bacon and you don't find something, I would be shocked.
Just the right amount of fat.
Sure it's
it's perfect. Yeah.
I'm sure it's photoshopped by some idiot by me, but if he doesn't have a real product, he will. You know. but like those people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been fighting those people my entire life. It's literally my father, and I don't understand why somebody's so smart who's done this nuclear engineering shit, who's not a dumb person, could be sucked into this fucked up cult. Because I've seen Trump my whole life and he's a moron who just comes on and Dave makes fun of him and then he goes back on his piss all over the world tour or whatever he's doing, and he was never taking it seriously. And my parents like I realized what happened in my mind is my dad thought Y2K was going to happen. He was terrified. Nuclear engineer guy. He knows what guides those missile systems. And I'm sorry to tell you, but the password, the 4-digit password to each Minuteman III missile in the United States was 0000 until they did the fix for the Y2K bug. And my dad knew that. And he told me that. And so he was worried. And so he started prepping. He built a bunker. He filled it full of provisions, canned goods, God knows everything else. Bought a thing to make wine and stockpiled, bought a barrel of Jack Daniels. They bottle it off for you and make it all special. But and a bunch of Cuban cigars. And this guy does not drink. He's never drank in his life. He never smokes. Neither of my parents drink or smoke. We're tight Christians. And I was like, Dad, why'd you buy all this stuff? He's like, well, we will barter with it in the aftermath of whatever happens, Y2K.
Wow.
And so the plan as a family was to watch CNN 1999 to 2000 and watching in each time zone as the world ends and people start dying. And then here we are. And so like my dad was drunk by the time I was at WKXT. We did the 11 o'clock and we stayed late to see if anything happened. And at 12:01, we're like, all right, we're out. And then so I was able to go home. Team 2, stepped in just in case and sat there in case they needed to go live. And I got to go home. So I popped a champagne bottle in the control room and sprayed it everywhere. I was very, very careful not to get equipment. I sprayed it on the floor and that's it. But that was already too much for people. Just the action of doing it pissed people off. But see, I used to get in trouble at the TV station because I did every job in production. I worked my way up on camera, then you're floor director, and I'm doing all this stuff and always around the production office and having fun with people and getting high. Like we did a 4:15 p.m. live cut-in, and that was me. I set up the camera, the mic. The talent sits down, they do the 45-second thing, and then we're out. I break it all down, put it away, and then me and Teddy go get high in his car listening to Outkast, doing a lap around the block, and then we walk right back into the building, high as shit, stinking like funk. And and then we would prepare for the 5 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news, and we didn't have an 11 at first, but then we did. And they're like, you're there, and we got cut. And so I take that bottle of champagne in my lap, and I go home, and my parents are drunk. The first time I'd ever seen them drink, and first time they've ever drank. And my parents are drunk. My dad's got his hand on my mom's thigh at the kitchen table. He's like, Barry, do you want to go upstairs? We're like, yes, please get out of here. You're disgusting.
Wow.
Because people didn't die. And it was fine. And he thought his world was ending. And that night he had fun. I'm sure I'm horrified by everything my parents have ever done. And I've seen them having sex in the kitchen. I walked in on them when I was like 8. Crazy. So it's like, I don't want to, so like, yes, go upstairs. And me and my brother sat there and drank whiskey and smoked cigars while the world didn't end.
Wow.
And we smoked all that stuff away. It took us quite a few years to drink all that and smoke it all, but we did. But I think that cracked my dad and broke him. And I think his entire thing, he was preparing for the worst. He had water pumps. And so he started going down this Rush Limbaugh, Fox News wormhole. And Rush
echo chamber.
Rush was really the thing. Him and this house painter guy from our church that I worked for the summer, painting houses, doing the trim work and stuff. They all listened to Rush Limbaugh every day religiously, and that's all these guys talked about. And I would sit there in real time ripping on Rush Limbaugh and calling him out for bullshit and doing whatever. Well, dude's a painter. He fuck off and just leave me to my rants alone. But I've been screaming about these same motherfuckers forever. It baffles me that these people could love this guy who is against everything that they say they believe in, this Jesus shit and integrity and whatnot. But like, I understand it. I understand Pat Robertson and how he co-opted the Republican Party and Reagan and how they've become this psycho cult of weirdos because it's my dad. Like I saw him go down this trip. I think he lost his mind at that point. And you know, jokes about Clintons were really popular. And it's not jokes like this, just saying something mean and incorrect and rude and racist and sexist and homophobic is not that's just saying some horrible shit and then diffusing it by saying, oh, it's a joke. Don't you get it? Yeah. No, the difference is you go up in front of a live audience and you say that shit and you see how people respond. And if you are that hateful, you will find an audience and be very successful.
It's true.
That is everything.
Yep.
Integrity means nothing. Chase your dream and buy your boat. That's not what I want. And Tom Green taught me that. Tom Green and Ralphie May taught me about fame. I thought I wanted to be David Letterman, and I do not. Yep. Because Tom, we would go into a bar, and you'd see the attention of the bar. You're just a normal dude, and you'd see the attention of the bar slowly turn. Yeah. And it goes in waves. And so
I'm hoping this happens to me this fall. He and I are going to apparently get together when he comes to town, and I'm very, very hoping to have this experience with Tom. Yeah. Okay.
This is All of Fame. So All of Fame it's a ripple in the room where people, just a bar where people recognize, and then all the attention's turned on Tom. It's Tom fucking Green in the corner of the bar. Yep. So now all the bros are coming up, and every single day, everywhere we went, at least 2 or 3 dudes independently throughout the night who would come up to him and say, "What's it like fucking Drew Barrymore?"
Oh God.
Right? What's it like? You bait shit out there, Drew Barrymore, dude. And every day.
Oh God.
Day. And I was like, Tom, and he's like, yep, everywhere I go, and every single day. And I was like, damn, dude, because he handled it very beautifully. He would always get very serious and quiet. He did not give them what they wanted.
Oh, good.
He would you know, be like, yeah, you know, I loved Drew with all my heart. She was my wife, and it was sad when it was over, and it's still sad now, and I miss her, and it's really painful to talk about or think about.
Fantastic.
And it would be dead serious. This is not a bit.
Yep.
This is a human being.
Yep.
This is a fucking person.
Yep.
And to be treated like you're a fucking monkey or I don't know. You don't talk to people like that.
No.
And every day, everywhere he goes. And that was heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
Because Tom's a good guy.
Yep.
He's got a big heart.
Yep.
And he's hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not another motherfucker who's done. I mean, people have copied him, and again, it ripples through comedy and his influences and everybody who does anything for sure. But like, what a great man and a beautiful person. I don't know, very nice guy. So we worked together that week, and everywhere we went, it was kind of like that. He would hang out, and people would be weird, and then you know, we hang out and have a few beers. He'd talk to everybody who wanted to talk to him. It was very congenial and very nice and fun and friendly. And then he would jump up and sing Journey or some shit. But we did that every night, and it was so fun. He was such a good guy. And then he came back, whatever, like a year and a half, 2 years later, and I was just standing outside Zany's back door, excuse me.
Yep.
And he's like, hey, Chad, so he remembered. I don't always expect people to remember my name, but he did. And I don't know. He's always been very kind and nice and such a wonderful man. But I learned something from him from work ethic. So he was touring with Sean Halpin that week, and Tom would do this little thing where he would just have like a tiny little camera smaller than his phone. I'm sure he uses his phone now or something better. But everywhere you went, like we went to the hockey game, we went to the Predators game, and he would just start recording, just click, not where you see it, not up like this, but like down by his side. He'd pull his thing out of his pocket, and just with his hand by his hip, he would hit record and just be holding the thing nonchalantly in a way where you wouldn't notice.
Yeah.
And so he's got these side view shots of the three of us walking down Broadway. And I never saw him do it, but I understand what he was doing now, because I did catch him a couple other times, basically doing just really quick, low key, just clip here.
Yeah.
And not even worded. Sometimes just setting, this is what we're doing.
Yep.
And at the end of the night, what he does is he goes back to the hotel and they just sync up the phone, dump every bit of footage in order into a timeline,
Yep.
and then start trimming it up. And that's the video for today. Put it out. And he does that at the end of the day every day.
Yeah.
Or he did at this time.
Yep.
I don't know what his production schedule is now. I see what he does. And I would guess it's similar process, but whatever it was we shot that day, get it off that phone, get it in a timeline, cut it, put it on the website.
Yep.
And it's that discipline of, no, this is what we do, or it's backlogged. My main problem is I've got hours and hours and hours and hours of footage, crazy, of everybody I've ever worked with, every show I've ever done.
Wow.
And it's just so, not, I don't have it all archived like Don, but
No.
but I've recorded every show I've done, and whether I still have that recording or it's a good one is questionable. But like I have all this media of me and all these other comedians from my years of comedy. I record
and
everything.
so many, by the way, so many people that you have worked with over the years at the top of the game. Like you've worked with the cream of the crop. Yep.
Well, I mean, what Zanies Nashville gave that to me, where it's like, this is an entertainment town. I was I was in Knoxville, right? So college, whatever, graduate. One of the people I really hung out with a lot and connected to in my broadcasting classes was Jenny Hunter, who worked at The Daily Show for a while, and she produced other stuff, and worked with Chris Rock and Sacha Baron Cohen, and great resume, but got fired from Daily Show for bringing lawsuits. She brought like 3 different lawsuits, and they were like 3 strikes and you're out. But she was one of my friends in Knoxville. And so when I started going to New York City in college, okay, so that's where I left off. So in college, we'd met Dave, and I'm there, and I'm not getting the internship. There's these AFL people online, and we're all talking, and we're going to meet up. But I've got tickets to the show. I get tickets to the show. I write in for tickets to the show at this point.
Yep.
And so I got tickets, and I took a girlfriend I was with at the time to the show, and so she asked Dave a question before the show.
Yeah.
Robin Thornett. We went to see David Letterman, and Dave always does the question. I told her, I prepped her. I was like, before the show starts, Dave's going to come out, and it's lightning. It's lightning fast. It'll be quicker than you think.
Yeah.
But he will ask if anybody has any questions, and if your hand isn't up before anybody else, forget it.
Yep.
And so she knew that going in, and we both tried our hands up. Of course, he called on her, and she said, "Dave, I'm in broadcasting. I work at the local CBS affiliate. I'm a young broadcasting student at the University of Tennessee. What do I do? How do I be you?" And Dave said to her, "Quit. We don't need any more. We're full. We don't need any more broadcasters. Start the show." And that was the greatest. That was the greatest. If I could, I don't think they were recording those.
No, I know.
There's no archive of those at this point.
Yeah.
But what a shame there's not, because Dave's interactions, becoming that thing of there's a thing that happened before the show and you didn't see it, but it's funny and we're going to talk about it all night.
Yep.
That was
exactly.
very, very appealing.
Yes.
And I like the back of the room, and I like just the callbacks to whatever the fuck's in the room, and that's
100%.
That.
Yep. The clubhouse. It was the club.
Right.
Yep.
So like at Zanies, that was me. That was the clubhouse. We had our bar shows and stuff, and we made more. But hanging out at Zanies, and so I would, if I didn't have a show on a Wednesday night, and chances are I didn't, so I would go down to Zanies. I could walk in for free and see the show and watch whoever it is, you know. Like I started doing open mics at Bar Car. I got it. I was in Knoxville working at TV, doing all this bullshit, local, college radio, making funny commercials. I worked for WB. I got fired from all these jobs. I worked for every television station in Knoxville, and I got fired from every one of them. Rehired at Channel 8, and I was a master production guy at Channel 8, and then I worked my way up into the graphics department, where I'm making now funny, on-air graphics, but then funny stuff with me and my fat friend Mike Deaver, and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, having fun in television. But I wanted to do stand-up, and there was no comedy club in Knoxville. This television station didn't want to produce any wacky comedy shows I wanted to do. Yeah, Jennifer had gotten an internship at The Daily Show, and so she moved off, and I hadn't gone, and followed up with Letterman. I could have applied for an internship later, in my career UT, but I was working in local stuff and I was doing my own thing. And what I realized was like I did not need to follow in his path.
Right.
Going to Ball State University is what Dave did, is because that's his state school.
Yes.
That's his local thing. That was the sensible option for him.
Yeah.
And for me to go jump into his thing is dick riding more than I clearly had done.
Yes.
And wasn't capable of understanding. I didn't understand boundaries. I was raised by, when I got arrested when I was 12, my cousin wrote a letter to the judge on my behalf saying he was raised in the woods. You know, that's the phrase that really stands up to me, which is true. So it's like, I had this, but these people didn't teach me boundaries, and I'm sending stuff inappropriately to David Letterman's private, mail drop. But, whatever, like I so I had to learn. But like, I got fired from all these jobs, rehired, and I was doing funny commercials at WB20 for a while. And it was just me and my friends. I would just pitch these crazy ideas, whatever I thought was the funniest. And some of the clients would do it, but whatever it was just me and my friends in these commercials.
Yeah.
And so I did that, but then it was still not stand-up comedy. And I knew I had to get out of there. But now there's the internet, and I'm looking at Nashville or Atlanta. Both had similar scenes at the time.
Yep. And
I chose Nashville because a cute girl I liked was there. And also there's no state income tax, and Atlanta traffic is a nightmare. So I'm like Nashville. I lived on that girl's couch for about 3 days.
Yep.
And that was over. But my friend Jesse was also a broadcast major at UT Knoxville. Jesse made videos in high school and was on like the TV show and the closed circuit TV in high school, a little sketch comedy show. And so he was already doing this. He was very funny, and he was friends with me and Robin. And so he was here in Nashville. So I went and I lived on his couch for a couple of weeks, and he was planning a sketch comedy show that was public access with like 6 other dudes. And so like day 3 in Nashville, I attend this thing and I'm not in it. They got the script and it's setting up their backstory. They're going to shoot this magical first episode with all this production effects and shit, and scenes and work and bullshit and then the sketch show that comes later will be very cut, friendly, tight sketches. But first we got to tell our backstory. And so one by one, these guys all disappeared and fell off the face of the earth. And here I am, Mr. Production Boy. I can make all this happen on a shoestring budget. Yeah. And so Jesse and I start doing sketch comedy videos together and putting them up on the internet. So he had this website, mangydog.com. And it was mostly like columns and funny shit. That original writing he'd done and these videos. And so as soon as I moved to Nashville, we started making videos together, and we Nuns Gone Wild parody. We had this crack PSA that was not to do crack, so it was just us pretending to do crack, and it had the Cheers theme playing in the background, which was our downfall because we didn't understand music licensing. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So as soon as we tried to get on YouTube, that was not allowed. Yeah. And that's the thing. This is all pre-YouTube. Yeah. So we're producing these things. We hire a couple local actors. We hold auditions and we hire a couple local actors. When I moved into Nashville, I got this job through Aquint. This woman, it used to, I don't know if they still exist, but it was a talent agency based out of Boston for creatives. So it's writers, web developers, video editors, graphic designers, and that's it. And so I get a job interview with Jennifer Noreen in Nashville. And I drive from Knoxville to there, and she looks at my portfolio and all my stuff. And because I've been doing, as soon as there was a website available to be done at the TV station at CBS, WBLT now, they changed their call letters. I was the web guy. I was the webmaster, the original guy, because I was already doing websites, because of the HTML class I took at UT Knoxville. Yep. And I had chadmriden.com, right? And so like the girlfriend I was dating at the time, Robin, she introduced me to her parents. When I showed up at their house, they called me chadmriden.com. It was such a hilarious novelty that this person had a website with their name. Haha, isn't that stupid? And it's,
When did you change from Chad M. Riden to chadriden.com? Because you dropped the M, you redacted the M again.
You got to remove the middle
You
name
got-
from
yeah.
the record.
Redact that sucker. Okay.
I
Yeah.
I just buy up every domain name. I've got fuckchadriden.com. I've got notchadriden.com. You have to, like, if you're like, listen, I took marketing and advertising classes at UT, and I just thought, this is evil. We're selling people trash and sugar. And this is all disposable garbage. It sucks, but these techniques for marketing can be used for comedy.
Sure.
And so, like, as a nerd, when I started doing open mics, so I get this job as a web developer. I was working doing the station website, but I was working in broadcasting, which is minimum wage in a small college town like that.
Yep.
They give you a bump every year. And so, like, I'm talking to my buddy Mike, and is making, like, hoping to make $12 an hour next year. And it's like, or I could move to Nashville and immediately double my rate.
Yeah.
Immediately. And so I meet this woman, and it turns out she doesn't have a job. This is a talent agency, and she looks at my portfolio. It's all news graphics and funny things I've made. And she's like, this is great, but I need a more diverse portfolio to sell you to a client.
Right.
So this is all news stuff and like surreal funny stuff. And she's like, I can't market it. And so I was like, okay. And I understood. And so I was driving back. It was a 2.5 hour drive back to Knoxville before my shift at Channel 8. But I thought about it on the way. And when I walked in, I just walked into my boss's office and with a blank sheet of copy paper and used a Sharpie to write, I quit on his desktop and handed it to him. And he just rolls his eyes. He's like, where are you going? And I was like, well, I'm selling everything. I'm taking my dog. I'm buying a laptop. I'm going to go to Jamaica and make art. And then when I have a portfolio worth of shit, I'll move to Nashville. And he's just like, whatever. And he's like, will you give me 2 weeks? And I was like, yes. And so I did the last 2 weeks or whatever. But I did not go to Jamaica. I got a call from that woman, and she was like, listen, if I flew you to Boston, could you stay there for a couple of weeks and take a couple courses? And I was like, yes. And so it was this springboard program where no matter where you were in the web development world, I was really good with Photoshop and HTML code, but I did not know JavaScript.
Right.
Didn't know PHP MySQL. And so other people were really good at that, but not Photoshop, So a handbag of people put them all through this boot camp. And so we were put up at some college in Boston, and you ride the subway system around Boston doing stuff. And but it was 2 weeks of training, 18 hours a day.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and
we all got the certification, but also we walked out of it with guaranteed work, 30 hours a week for a year as a contract. And so they're farming us out, and it was at a good rate, better than I was doing in Knoxville. Yeah. And so, like, the first assignment was kind of a nightmare. The second one was in this building, Cummins Station, in Nashville, a historical train station, and it's now hot shot offices. And there's a bar downstairs, and they come up to the third floor where I've got a web development job, and these cute girls have flyers for what's happening in the bar downstairs this week. Yeah. And it's comedy Tuesday night. Open mic. And so I was like, holy shit. And so I go down there Tuesday, like second day on the job, and I just watch. So maybe 15 comics or so, and half of them were hilarious. Yeah. And half of them were homeless people who were like, there's beer and a microphone. Hell yeah. So, but I thought, man, if I can come right in the middle, if I'm funnier than them. And this is cool. And so I wrote 5 minutes. I repeated it over and over and over, practiced it hundreds of times, and then came back the next week. And Tim Northern was the host. He was on Star Search. He's done a bunch of other stuff. Brilliant, very arbitrary and cartoony comedian. Now from Nashville, East Nashville, now living in Louisville. Beautiful family, beautiful man. Very funny. Very.
I know that name.
He's so funny. Check out my boy Tim Northern. So he was hosting the show, and I was supposed to do 5 minutes. I did 10. If he showed
and didn't
me
get
light,
pulled. See, you didn't get pulled though.
If he's shown the light, and I'm sure he did, I don't know. I didn't see. Yep. And my buddy Jesse taped it. I saw the video, but I should have stopped at 10 minutes for sure. I should have stopped at 5 if we're being honest here. But like 10 minutes of it is really good. And the last 2 minutes is me going, all right, well, do another.
You didn't have your good night, everybody. You didn't have that moment.
I'll never play the video. It's stuff that just didn't work. I wasn't stumbling, but I could have cut. But anyway, he walked up on stage, got a good reaction. I didn't take into account laugh breaks, and applause. And I got both of those, and I did not expect that. I did not time that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to brag. I've not gotten that since. Like chasing that dragon. Chasing that dragon of that first time, we'll never recreate it. How could we ever? But like, but that's what got into me. And so I came back every week. 3 months in, a woman moved from New York City, Donna Kinney. She had done stand up in Anchorage and then was in New York City for a while. And she walked into Zanies with Lewis Black and asked Dorfman if she could do an improv show, 45 minutes improv, 45 minutes open mic, get local comics who would do the open mic involved with the improv. And he was like, yes, of course. And so she came to the bar car, and 3 months in, we auditioned for that because we already had a sketch group that was producing videos before YouTube. So the four of us all auditioned, other local comics. So it's half local comics and half like theater douchebags in Nashville. And some of them were great, wonderful, beautiful people, very talented. Not all of them.
Hey, you ever want to go to a good karaoke night? Go on the rap party of a local actors, local troupe. Yeah. When they go out and do karaoke, they're the best in the world. Pretentious as hell, but it's the best. Anyway.
And if you're in Nashville, go to Santa's Pub. Everywhere else is bullshit. Anyway, yeah, I don't know, what was I saying?
No, sorry. So you'd done your first spot.
Oh, so anyway, she auditioned us for the improv group. Yeah, and we all got in. All four of us got in.
Yep.
And it's funny. So like it was at the Zanies, this wonderful top 5 in the country comedy clubs, and so I was very lucky to have a show there every single Tuesday. Now the open mic we were doing was Tuesday at 8:00.
Yeah.
And this show was scheduled at Zanies for Tuesday at 8:00. And it's kind of a fuck you, but whatever. We just moved our show start time to 10, and we would do the Zanies show, which was very, very popular, very fast. And then we'd say, hey, everybody follow us to the bar car, and quite a few would, and we would have our other show. So I was writing a new 5 minutes every week, and it was like topical Letterman monologue style jokes, because that's what I've trained myself to do.
Yeah, you're doing your reps.
Yep. And so that's what I was writing and delivering, but I had 5 new minutes of it every week. And so I'd try it out at the bar car, and we'd see what happens. And then I would come back to my show at Zanies, and I would have a revised version of that, if not something else.
Yeah.
But I had a new 5 minutes every week, and they liked that a lot. And again, it's not the jokes, it's the personality. And here I am teaching myself to write and continuing to see what works in a real live space and not on a postcard I'm mailing into oblivion.
What a gift.
So like that was quite a thing. But the manager of the club had Tuesdays off. That was their night off. So I would always show up at the club. You could get in for free. I'm a local comic. I have a show here. So they always let me in for free. I'm sitting in the back drinking water, hydrating, and trying not to touch anything or break anything, staying out of the way. But watching whoever is on stage that night. Like I'm in the club. And so I just show up, and if the comics have different material, like I'll watch and laugh, and I try not to be judgmental. Even I would go to stuff I knew I would hate because I knew that there was something I could learn, even if it's what not to do.
Yep.
Like they are headlining this comedy club. They know something I don't. They've got the job I want, whether I think they're funny or a genius. Like I've got something to learn here, and why not get FaceTime? Why not hang out? This is, if you ask me the guidance counselor trick question of what would you do if you could go anywhere and be anything right now, I was like, I would go to a comedy show. I would want to be at a comedy club.
Yeah.
That's always been the case.
Yeah.
Like since I knew that existed, like, yes, let's go out, hang out and do comedy and enjoy it and see these brilliant people who are the funniest fuckers on earth.
Yep.
Like, and hang out with them. And like you say, I've been very, very lucky, but it's because of Zanies. So like we did this very successful show for like 11 months, and I built up a following in that town outside of the dirtball independent thing that they were co-opting to do this show, but that we grew as a result of it, and Brian told me, he's like, I'm investing in people. Like, this isn't, you can't just come in here and do one show and make some money and get the fuck out forever. Like you have to build a career out of this. You're dealing with the same people over and over and over. So I'm investing in these people. And when you're trying to get a spot at a club, it's a spot some old timers got, and he has to die before you get it. That's how it works.
Yep.
And or be funnier, sell more tickets. Yep. And so
asses and seats. That trumps all many times.
Yeah. And there's a reality to that, but it's like it works hand in hand. You need each other. You need the gritty local scene, DIY till I die, people doing it themselves to feed into the system. And so that was my relationship with him pretty quickly, because we did that show, and then I was hanging out, and then like after a year, I asked to do a guest set on a night that I was talking to the manager. We were just talking in the green room after hours. Everybody's gone, and Rose was like, "Chad, I didn't realize you were a comedian." I was like, "Wait, what?" And she's like, "We've known each other for how long? I didn't know you were a stand-up comic. I thought you were just some improv douchebag." And I was like, "How rude of you, ma'am. Like, you know me. You love me. We are hanging out here. Like, I have a show on Tuesdays you've never seen and you didn't know I was a comic. Fuck you." But she was very, very funny. And she gave me guest sets immediately. She scheduled like 15 of them. And she was like,
wow.
"Do 5 minutes in front of a real crowd on a Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. And we're going to work on this together and refine this 5 minutes."
Yeah.
And so she worked me, and it wasn't horrible changes. She was right and shaping stuff up. And I had a good type 5 that killed in front of those crowds of just randos to see comedy that night. And so she put me up in front of Brian Dorfman, and I did the set in front of him. And it was me and my buddy Jesse kind of auditioned on the same night as me. So we'd both been doing stand-up. We'd both been doing improv. He and I co-hosted and produced this bar car show on Tuesdays, which was really popular and fun. And like pro comics would stop in all the time. Tim Wilson would hang out. Everybody would come and hang out because it's fun.
Yep.
And anyway, so like we both go up. I'm sick. I vomit 3 times before I get on stage. And I go up, and it's not a big audience. It's like, I don't know, maybe 25 people, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe less, 18. And I do my fucking 5, whatever. And Jesse kind of shits on the room. He's like, sold out arena again. Whoop-de-doo, good for me. He's very silly, very, very funny. But he was way more critical of the turnout for the room than I was at the start. I went in like a drunk cheerleader, and I was known for my crazy monkey dance at the time, if that tells you anything. And
you're a physical comic.
Yeah, but no, I've always been very, very physical and animated. I try to be a living cartoon. So it's like at that time I was running around going flippity flip and doing the crazy monkey dance as part of the improv show. And, so it's like very loose, stupid, and dumb. But I don't know, they liked it, I guess. But yeah, so after the show, Dorfman was saying to us, he was like, "Jesse, you walked out there, you acted like, there should be a packed out stadium. Who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? Why should people be here? Why aren't people here?" And to me, he was like, he's like, "You had them in the palm of your hands, and then you started talking this Jesus shit." He was like, "Why? What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I can't stop doing it. Like this is the bullshit of the world I'm seeing right now. Yeah. I have to deflate this dumb thing I am intrinsically interwoven with. My whole fabric is this weird church cult of Trump." And whatever. And it's fighting the same people. It's fighting the dummies, the people who didn't read the book and never will, and think you're gay for reading it.
So you're doing the opposite. A lot of people, they like to, take divided people and bring them together. You like to bring them together and then divide them.
Well, okay. So walking into Zany's and sitting down and watching whoever's there, you're learning these lessons.
Yeah.
I walk in one Wednesday, and it's I forget the MC, probably Frankie Harris or somebody, and then Henry Phillips, the singer-songwriter / comedian, very, very funny. He had a Comedy Central Presents, a bunch of other stuff. Done a couple of films like Punching Henry, and then there's like a Punching Henry 2, Electric Boogaloo. I don't know what the fuck he's doing, but very, very funny. And he's got these viral cooking shows on Twitch that he does, Henry's Kitchen. Very funny character, but he's also got like El Suicido. He's got all these different characters he does, but the cooking stuff got reposted by Snoop Dogg the other day. Very, very funny man. Henry Phillips. You got to check him out.
Yeah.
But anyway, what was that fucking? So it's Henry Phillips,
and
then Doug Stanhope. So Stanhope walks out, and this is just a comedy club Wednesday night in Nashville. He'd sniffed out the room. He sits in the balcony and he watches people coming in and being seated. And he sees how they interact with each other and their waitress and the door staff and the MC and the opener and or middle guy. And he watches everything like a hawk. And he knows who these people are before he ever gets on that stage because he's seen every move they've all made.
Yeah.
And I learned to do that. But and it makes all the difference in the world. But
you got to know your audience, know your,
He walked in and he'd sniffed out this crowd. And the first thing out of his mouth was his abortion is green bit. Brilliant, hilarious. It's on YouTube. Abortion is green. Have an abortion, pro-abortion. I won't do the bit. Find it yourself. Do some work.
Yep.
But immediately, about 4 tables of people stand up to walk out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they head for the door.
Yeah.
They're not here for this. They won't stand for it, and they're out.
Yeah.
Well, the staff is not going to drop checks for another hour. So you're fucking it up. And they're serving drinks to these people over here because they're not shitheads who are leaving. They're people who are buying drinks.
Yeah.
So you have to fucking wait. There's one credit card machine and that's it. And when you get your bill, we'll run you out. So now they're captive inside the showroom with standing up in line up against this little window, little cut in the wall to the ticket booth. And they have to listen to Doug. They're captive. They cannot leave. They have not paid their bill. And so Doug just tears them apart. He was like, you don't know who I am. You didn't know what you were coming to see. You're just like, it's comedy, so I'm going to like it. And you walk down here like an idiot. Have you ever bought a ticket at the arena to see whatever the fuck band is playing on a $200 ticket night? No. But you did that tonight, didn't you? You paid for a babysitter. Like, he's destroying all these people. And he already knows that they're they were going to walk out anyway.
Sure.
So why not get them the fuck out of here?
Yeah.
And they had to listen to him. He berated them. I wish I had a recording. And then as the last one's leaving and the door closes, he holds silence for a beat. And he goes, now we can start the fucking show.
Oh,
and the
my
place goes
God.
crazy.
Oh.
And I'm like, I've never seen anybody clear the room like that intentionally, like flushing the toilet. Like, let's go. You're going to be a problem. You don't like it. And see, that lesson, I do that now where, I'll say, like, if you don't want to be here, obviously you don't want to be here. You hate this. You hate everything that's happening. Let me buy that beer that you're drinking. If you down it and leave and go do anything else that would make you happy and bring you joy. It's not this. That's okay. Comedy's subjective. I'll pay your beer right there.
Yeah.
If you bounce, go do something you love.
Okay,
And
I want to.
If they're smart, they'll leave. If not, I'll dump a pitcher of beer on their head. Which I have done. Spring water.
I gotta interject. I hate that we've gone 2 hours already because it doesn't feel like 2 hours. I hate
edit
it.
this down or cut it and
No, I don't cut them. I don't cut them. Number one, because I'm lazy. But number two, I like long form. I'm a fan of long form, and screw anybody who doesn't like the long form. I'm sorry, that's what I do. But I gotta comment here because it's this alchemy. Those of us who loved being part of the clubhouse, those of us who love this stuff, this is the thing that I love so much. The alchemy of, is it broadcasting? Yes, but no. Is it stand-up and is it comedy? Yes, but no. Is it performance art? Yes, but no. Like the Andy Kaufmans of the world, or the people, like these are what you're talking about here is exactly the sensibility of the tribe that I'm trying to find. These people who elicit reaction. Does it have to be cookie cutter laugh? No, it's not. It's not just the stand-up comic stuff. It's performance art. It's some of this other stuff that's there as well. And that's a huge part of this alchemy that you're talking about. Like again, Tom Green. I watched Tom Green before he got his MTV deal. He was in Canada. He was thrown across Canada before he went down to the States.
Right.
It was mocking. It wasn't just like Letterman. It was deconstructing the talk show.
Yeah, he's such a huge Letterman fan, and that's one way we bonded was talking about Dave.
Yeah,
he loves Dave. He really does, and it's neat talking. That is one way we bonded very quickly.
Yes.
Love of Dave, for sure.
Yeah, but he's
respect.
not like, he's a performance artist. It's not just his stand-up is good. Like he's on tour right now. His stand-up is really good. He's supporting these 2 docs that just came out. His stand-up is very, very, very good. But Tom Green is way more than that. He's a performance artist. And that's what Letterman collected. The Harvey Pekars of the world were just as big as the Jay Leno's of the world. Are you there?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you are. Okay. There we go.
Yeah, I think I am.
Okay. No, you're here. You're here.
Sorry. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Like that's the whole fun of alt.fan Letterman. It's like, here's people who love this thing, and they're all over like, I never would have met them like in real life, stumbling into them on the streets, but maybe you would. But we started hanging out and going to see the show. So Tracy and whoever, Renee, would go get a block of 30, 40 tickets, and there was a limitation, and it was an honor to be there.
Yeah.
They couldn't always just walk in and get 80 fuckers seated. So like more often than not, it was like 20 to 30. But they would go to see the show, and Tony Mendez was very kind and would wave us onto the stage and put us in skits and give us shit. Like I stole a bunch of cards off of Alan's desk. He's like, take them. And, and I've got a bunch of cue cards, not me rooting through the dumpster, although I have done that and I am not ashamed at all. Don't throw away this shit. This is all memorabilia. But, we were very lucky and they treated us really nice and they would let us walk through the control room. So it's like having had contact with people on the staff, and like in the context back and forth with Janice about internships or whoever. But by this point we're interacting with Mike McEntee all the time, and his brilliant what is it? What does he call
Gazette.
it? The Wazoo.
Wahoo Gazette.
It's Mike. No, I never quite got a hold on the name, but Mike was a great guy, and he would give shout outs to my shows. So in this, like the cameo mention of an AFL, whatever, they post the friggin' flyer to my show in Chattanooga. And so, very quickly I had this credit being on the Tony Mendez show on Late Show with David Letterman's website. And and people loved that. People thought it was cool. And like Walter was very cool to give me a CD of the clips and stuff like that. So it's like, it's all, nice positive reinforcement. So like my routine became like, I'll go to New York City for like a week, try to get tickets to Letterman, try to go see Conan, go see Jenny at the Daily Show. And I got to sit there backstage at the Daily Show and like meet Jon Stewart. Like when he walks off the stage, he walks over to the two chairs right next to the stage where it's the writer of the piece and me. And so like he walks up, so it's like all these experiences, and then going up in New York City, like I got to do legendary Face Boys open mic at what the fuck was that? Legendary I forget the room's name. But Face Boys open mic in New York City, and I met Christian Finnegan there. And like, so everybody went out to breakfast at the end of the show. I stayed for the whole damn thing. It was me, Christian Finnegan, and like maybe 8 other people that had breakfast with lunch, Face Boy. And so this is my, I'm trying to weasel my way into New York City comedy, just doing open mics, which you have to have a consistent presence and do 5-6 shows a night to make a dent in it. Like our local genius, Matt Sterling, used to do these Mr. Show style presentations with live and tape stuff, interacting with his partner, Clay Wambacher, their writing partner. Brilliant guys. Matt moved to New York City and he was expecting to show up and be a genius at all these shows. And he is, but nobody gives a shit if you're not there all day, every day, hammering. You go to New York City to be great, not to pop in once a month. And so he wouldn't do that pace, but he ended up bringing his beautiful family back to Nashville. So like they've got a beautiful house and recreating their experience as a family in Nashville, and Brooklyn's crazy, but they had to move back. Anyway, I don't know. I'm off.
It's okay.
But now I'm going to New York City, and I was crashing at Jenny's couch, and I was going to see Letterman shows and getting up at night. And that was all like awesome because you could go into the city, and after getting shows on my own and getting into it more, then it's comics putting you on their stuff and connecting you. And Bargatze, when he moved to New York, like I would just get into a car with him and he would take me to 8 different rooms in a night, and we would do 2 sets at Caroline's, run down to Broadway Comedy Club, do 20 minutes there. He runs back. I close that show. I run back to Caroline's. He's finishing that one. We go down to fucking Comedy Cellar or the thing around the corner, whatever though. But he's taking you all over the place, and then you end up in Brooklyn at some bar show. But he's doing like 7 reps a night, in different spots and driving around Manhattan to do it. And so it's just like whatever you're doing, and then and you would see him write a bit and then do iterations on it all night. Have a fully developed bit that has everything solid within 3 days, and then put it in the book and have new material in the rotation. And that's how he worked. Very disciplined, very driven, and you just going along for the ride. It's like, Jesus, crazy.
How happy are you about his, like I got to watch in LA at Blast May, I got to watch Dave interview Nate.
I wish they would put that out as an episode. I want to see that.
They didn't, I could, all 3 of them, Nate, Sarah Silverman, and Tim Robinson, none of them were recorded. I couldn't believe it. And it was,
crime.
but how
You
happy
told
are
me.
if it, like Nate seems like that guy where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that guy put in the work, but also just
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah.
genuinely like nice guy. I'm so glad that he's
He's the
getting
best.
the props that he deserves.
He's the best. He started showing up at the bar car. Like we were running the show and he was in Chicago coming up, and he would come home for holidays and birthdays and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he would pop into bar car and he would always pack the place out. His family and friends would come out to see him, and you'd see the room rise. And from the beginning, now the first time he did it, like I thought, like, oh, who is this guy? Like he had the delivery was the same, the writing was brilliant, but it's not what it is today, of course.
Yeah.
But it was very, very funny from the beginning, and I loved him. And so he would, and then you got a friend in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Who knows all the other comics in Chicago at that time, and you could drive to Chicago and do shows. And that's what I started doing, is like I'm producing all these shows around Nashville. So I'm the guy, and so you call Chad. So I was the first person to book Nate and Rory Scovel and Jared Harris and out of New Orleans. Damn, it'll come to me tomorrow. But the first to book those guys on one of my shows in the alley.
Yeah.
And then I was booking them and like Rory and Nate at Zany's before Zany's knew who they were. They're just on my shows.
Yeah.
And but people love them, And so and eventually that's the guy I became for Zany's, where like he would be like, you're the dirtbag. Who should we pay attention to? And I just pitched Nate to the CMT Comedy Stages show on that was filmed at the Bell Court, and they loved him. Immediately they thought this is a superstar, and I was at all those tapings, and I'm in the audience of every single fucking comedian's thing on that. But Nate was one of my pitches. I pitched like 15 people to them, and they picked Nate, and they were 100% correct, and they loved him, and they treated him like a superstar from the start. And so after that awesome. Recording, I said to Dorfman, I was like, you got to book Nate. And he didn't know who he was, but he booked him to open or middle for Aries Spears. And of course, Nate destroyed. Yep. And he sells out Bridgestone Arena in Nashville now.
Yeah.
But Nate, like, then he moved to Chicago. He got or moved to New York, and he got great. And you go see him. He'd come back down, and you just put him up on whatever. And I try to teach this people to open mic runners. It's like, no, this is a hometown boy coming home. But anytime there's a celebrity and somebody has credits, say, when do you want to go up? Spike them in whatever the hell they want. Let them do their spot and get the fuck out, or they can hang out. It's up to them. But give them that respect.
Yep.
And a lot of people bristle to that. And so Nate got stiffed. He went to an open mic in Nashville. He was already on TV Tonight Show multiple times. He got stiffed where they're like, they made him wait or whatever. It's so funny. Like some people, it's so weird. But, he would drop in and like he was in LA for a while, and then they realized very expensive. They're pregnant. They're going to have a kid.
Yep.
They wanted that Nashville life. They wanted to be closer to family, which you need when you have a kid and you're doing comedy or not comedy. But she had her family and his, and so they bought a house back in Nashville, but they were secretive about it.
Yep.
He didn't want people to really know that he wasn't in LA. That's important to have FaceTime.
Yep.
And he decided I can fly in and out for meetings and not tell anybody shit, and they don't know. There's not big barbecues I'm missing where everybody's like, where's Nate?
Yep.
So, he did that, and he was kind of secretive, but when he was going to go run a set for the Tonight Show, I've got stage time for him. So you can't always say like his name. You just say special mystery guest comic is what I say.
Yeah, just like the seller makes build a whole brand around. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Buford, Georgia, this beautiful little comedy club run by the guy that started the Atlanta Punchline, and they had this little brick church that they rent a room, and I got booked there, and they were really wonderful to me. But like Ron White lived right there, and those waitresses also worked for Ron. And so anytime Ron wanted to pop in, they would just send out a text and email saying, special guest tonight. And everybody understood what that was. Yeah. And everybody bumped, Ron's going to do a spot. But mostly Ron was very respectful. He would come in on a weird night and do some shit like that. Or your show might be co-opted and turned into that, Yeah. Unfortunately, I never got to be there. But whenever I was in that town, I was always joking. I was like, I'm crashing at Ron's place. It's fine. Yeah, you just go and you have fun. And like Zany's introduced me to all these comics. I got to work with everybody I had ever dreamed I could have, and met the others. So it's like I met Louis C.K., but I didn't work with him. I was scheduled to one night. He wasn't going to do the third show. That's why I got the show. I thought I was going to work with CK. but I met him, and but I get
Okay,
to work
but
with almost everybody else.
by
It
the
was
way,
really awesome.
I gotta say this: go to chadriden.com and chadriden.com will say it shows a lot of the people that you have worked with, and it's not an exhaustive list by far, but I mean
Yeah.
it's a who's who. There's one name on there that I didn't notice, and I'm curious about this. You ever bump into Norm as you were going through your career?
Yeah, so he came and did Zany's one time when I was there, and I bought a
Yeah,
ticket.
yeah.
I can get in for free. That show is going to sell out. My policy is if I think it's going to sell out, I'm going to buy a ticket and support this artist and go
Oh,
have
you're a
a
good boy,
once in a
Chad Riden.
lifetime
That's awesome.
experience. I'm
Yep,
not going to be standing there like a scrub.
yep.
Can I come in? Can I? I don't want to ever be in that position as a comedian. It's disgusting.
You're a good
This is
boy.
my club. This is
Yep.
my home base. And I will respect the art form by paying for something. So I've paid for Chris Rock. I've paid for George Carlin, and whatever.
And you paid for Norm Macdonald.
I paid for Norm Macdonald, and it was a wonderful, it was a magical experience. Just they loved him. I'm sure everybody always has. Just it was really incredible. I did not get to hang out. I think he took off pretty quickly or was sequestered. I wasn't trying to jump in the way and be a weirdo. But yeah, I got to see him live, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful I got to see Carlin at the Ryman Auditorium just a few months after 9/11, and he came
Oh,
out, of course, standing O, and people calmed down, and he's got papers in his hand. He's got 8.5 by 11 paper, and he's like, listen, I have to apologize because something big just happened, and I've got new stuff about it. And I'm pretty particular about words. I don't want to screw this up. I want to get it right. I think I've got it, but these are my security blanket. And with your permission, I'd like to have notes on stage as I run through some new material. And of course,
wow.
everybody's like, whatever the fuck
Yeah, go
you're
for it.
doing. And
You're
so
George
he
Carlin.
does his special, he does it, and he knows it all. And he's got the rhythm and everything, but he has the pages in his hand. And that was very educational to me. I was like, okay, that's, I think, the greatest living legend in comedy at the time.
Mhm.
And this is pretty crazy. Everybody's told me I'm lazy for having notes and shit. And I know you don't do it all the time, but look at this guy doing this. And then I saw Mitch Hedberg come time. So Mitch Hedberg had come through town 4 or 5 times, and I was always on the road,
Yep.
and I missed him because I'm a parent. I've got a mortgage, and Northman paid my mortgage for a good 15 years or so, but I'm on the road busting my ass.
Yep.
And so I missed Mitch, and then I saw him scheduled, and I immediately blocked that off of my calendar. I was like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yep.
I'm going to go see Mitch Hedberg.
Yep.
And so I did that, and he walked out on stage, and he's like, he's got a legal pad, yellow legal pad. And well, first of all, we're in the green room. Frankie Harris is emceeing, and so Lynn Shawcroft is there, and Mitch is sitting in the big chair in the corner. Oh shit! Oh, this bound to happen.
Water?
I think my phone's shutting down.
Oh.
Hold on. I may have to call you back on another phone.
I'm so sorry.
He's back. He's back, kids.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. We're all good, man.
Yeah, good.
No. We're all good. We will need to wrap up soon, and I feel bad because you're on such an amazing. You're riding the wave of verbiage, and it was delightful. And you're sideways now, so can we change you back to? There we go. All right.
I'm so sorry.
Good. Can I hear you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. I love how your final words there, where we're gonna do the cut, is, "Oh, this was bound to happen," and
yeah, I guess that charge cable is not what I thought it was, so that's on me. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, this
Anyway.
is okay. We're getting you back on here to shoot the outro is basically what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Chad, I cannot wait to have you back here. I love stand-ups. I love talking and connecting with stand-ups. And it's just, you're all like Fabergé eggs. You're all these unique, beautiful pieces of art that cannot be replicated.
That's what human beings are. And anytime we forget that, we're fucked, because we're all unique snowflakes melting our asses on the fire, and it's beautiful. And yeah, and that's the vibe in Taos, New Mexico, where I'm building an off-the-grid structure for me and others, a comedy club, a compound, a weird cult, It's all owned by my church, the Holy Motherfucking Trinitarian Church. You could get me on workaway.info or on my website, fucktexas.org. And come hang out, man. We built a house for a homeless lady and her son, my neighbor. They've lived out here for 9 years in an Adobe loaned to them by the owner who went to Hawaii to die, and his family wants that house back, so they booted them out. We built them a hyper Adobe 2-bedroom, 2-story house in 4 months with volunteers and donations, and we still need more money to finish it, and there's a GoFundMe. I'm doing the same thing for me, but much smaller. 222 square feet is mine. It's very, very small, 1 story, 1 room, and that's what I'm building, same style. But that's what I'm doing out here is I'm building a comedy club that's Kiva, but I'm also trying to build a scene in Taos the way I did in Nashville and trick my friends into coming here to see me instead of me coming to see them while I'm building. So it's working, and a bunch of comics have popped through out of curiosity, if nothing else, and they love it. The crowds here love them, and they always ask him, like, why are you here? Why are you in the middle of nowhere in a little mountain ski town? Like, Chad. And we have a great time. So Stanhope's coming May 6th at Dali at K-Taos here in Taos. He said he wanted to kick off his Mountain Time Zone tour here, and I was like, "You're drunk, review." But we were hanging out in Bisbee a year ago when I did a show down there and did a podcast and stuff. That's on my bullshit, but he was saying he was going to come and do this. It's like, yeah, whatever. But then I got that call, whatever it was, a month or two ago, and he's like, "Let's book it." And so that's nice. That's why. Like, you build these shows, you just do an open mic, start it wherever you're at, and invite anybody to come and do 5 minutes. And it's my favorite thing in the world is seeing somebody go up for the first time ever. I love it. I'll pay them with a $2 bill, tell them they're a professional comic now, buy them a beer, and tell them that's the most money they'll make in the next 10 years. But I encourage them to come back, and it's a fun time, and people love it. And so we're creating comedians, we're creating community, we're building houses, we're building community, and this is what I love to do. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. There's not as much Trumpy stuff. It's not just Nazis marching in the street of Nashville and elsewhere in the country, and they are not doing that here. They would get shot. But there's conservative people here, but it's not crazy in your face Trump flags and bullshit happening like it is in Nashville. And so I'm very, very happy, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm happier than I've ever been. It's kind of crazy.
You're doing the Chad Riden version of what Joe Rogan did.
I've got the Chatterosa. I've modeled it more after Stanhope's compound in Bisbee.
Yeah.
It's not quite there yet. There's a lot of trash piled up and pallets and dogs. But we're having fun. I do the Chad by Chad West Festival every year. Come hang out. But we'll do other stuff too. I don't know.
I've really enjoyed all of our interactions, and I can't wait till we do it again. I knew this was going to be one of the shows that I would just absolutely be able to sit back and just enjoy the process and be present the whole time. That's how I feel. I can't wait till our next interaction, whatever that looks like. I certainly want to come down and see what you're doing, and I'm just grateful that guys like you are in the world, Chad. I really, really am. I just thank you for coming on today, and I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you so much. This is an amazing thing. Like you say, you are building that community of weirdos who love this thing. And I mean, I like it when people commit to stuff they love and do it. And you do that. And this is a beautiful thing. I've had comics ask me to do a Letterman podcast with them because I recorded all the shows. I had, shittier database than Don, and mine was on note cards stuffed into the VHS box. But, knowing that these people still exist and they remember, and it's just it's kind of an amazing thing to be, and it's just being a fan. That's all it is loving something and then chiming in about it and shitting out your version of whatever you think is funny. I just think everybody should do stand up for the first time ever. Everybody's got 5 minutes in them. Beyond that, it's up to you, but everybody's got 5 minutes in them. And it's up to you to put in the work to do that and then get your ass on stage. If you're not willing to do that, shut the fuck up at the show and listen to the people with the talking stick. And but people like you are bringing together other people who respect this and love this. There's nothing better. If your first date, Take them to an open mic or meet people there. Look around the room, see who else has laughed at the same stuff you are and hates the same stuff you do. And you found a partner. Every woman on every dating site says they want somebody funny. Go to a local comedy show. You're supporting local artists.
Yep.
And you're meeting the people you will see on Saturday Night Live. I promise you. You will see people who end up on the Tonight Show, HBO. Yep. You'll say, I saw that kid. And you'll be that's the beauty of this, is you can be a lifelong fan and support these people when they really need it. It's nice. Thanks for having me, dude.
Oh, Chad, I appreciate you so much. This is exactly why we do the show. The collection, the community is exactly the reason why we started this thing. This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night.
Overcoat and underpants.